Hey there. Nobody's here yet. Uh, Forgot to do my. Uh, Hi there. Anybody that's here? I'm just forgot to put my intro song back in, so that minute that I normally have, I do not have because I am a silly Billy. So how's everybody doing today? Um, Hope you're doing okay. Seems like more chaos going on, so I'm just about done with things I needed to do. So we have some viewers. What a week. What a day, what a week. What a year. Hard to believe it's only February. Only 3 more years of this to go. So we'll just give everybody a couple minutes to get here. Anybody want to say anything? How's everybody doing? Uh it has been quite a year. We're 1/4 of the way through, if we can make it out to the other end anyway. So it seems like every single show I have some MAGA come on and demand that I define what fascism is, as though that's gonna, you know, that's their, oh, see, you can't even define fascism, which is by itself kind of a dumb question, because fascism per se is not a definable thing. And if anybody actually understands fascism, they're not going to say that you should define fascism, because it's not really definable so much as it is describable. There's a 12 tenets of fascism, and there's like different numbers of that are bandied about by different people, have come up with different assessments. But what there are is there's commonalities between fascist governments, and they're not like self-defined fascists. They are described as fascists based on how many of these commonalities you find in them. So it's not like communism, like, what is the definition of communism? Hang on. It's like the actual common ownership of the means of production and distribution, where there's like an actual ideology that drives it. But fascism doesn't have so much an ideology that drives it. It's more of just a function of a government that functions in a certain way, and in certain ways, and then those ways and those commonalities are what makes something fascist. So it's not as easy to define as like a one sentence thing. You have to go and you have to look at what these characteristics of fascism are. And then if it meets enough of those characteristics, then you start saying, "Oh, that's fascist." So, with that in mind, I went ahead and I created this slideshow. Trying to figure out which of these is going to be the best view for this. Let's try this one. Yeah, maybe that one. I don't know. It's always hard to figure out which one is the best. Let's try this one for a while. Anyway, there's in the description. Oh, maybe this one's a good one. Maybe in the description on YouTube, and I think on everything that I sent out, you can find a link to this slideshow that if you wanted to just open it up and look at it separately, you can. And in every slide, there are, I have my source information so that I didn't just make this stuff up. So in doing this, I came up with over 150 specific examples of fascism, and across all the 12 tenets of fascism. So we're going to go through this. We'll see what you have to say after that. But you asked me to define fascism. You asked me to prove that he is a fascist. So you've got to, got to pay attention and stay on your toes. So somebody says Donald Trump is named in the Epstein files more times than Jesus is named in the Bible. And then no, somebody says no. Well, we'll see if we can change your mind. Like I said, there are over 150 of these tenets, are the examples of him in these tenets. So let's go ahead and start just diving into this. Hang on, let me do something real quick. Hide that vertical. It gets distracting. All right. Unlike communism, which has a defined ideology, core text, and economic theory, fascism is identified by a pattern of behaviors and characteristics. Scholars like Robert Paxton and Umberto Eco developed frameworks identifying fascist movements through observable characteristics rather than stated ideology. Let me just... The 12 tenets emerged from studying historical fascist regimes, such as Mussolini's Italy and Nazi Germany, and identifying common patterns. A movement is fascist not by what it calls itself, but by whether it systemically exhibits these characteristics. So I hope you get what I'm saying here. It's not just whether or not they say they're fascist, or whether or not, it's not like with communism where there's a specific ideology they follow. It's more characteristics. And so I think the easiest way I can put that is fascism is not so much defined as described. And when you describe fascism and you look at it next to what Trump is doing, it starts looking like, it's like if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and all of that, then you start to think it's a duck. So let's look at what the description is, what the characteristics of fascism are, and whether or not Donald Trump meets those characteristics, and the MAGA movement in general. So there's these 12 things, and I'm going to go through each of these and show several examples of how each of these 12 things he meets. Authoritarian leadership, ultranationalism, rejection of democracy. Just look at the news today with what's going on with Georgia. Militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, regimentation of society, the economy, racial ethnic superiority, anti-democratic liberal views, anti-democratic and anti-liberal views, not anti-democratic slash the anti describes both. Traditional gender roles, propaganda and censorship, corporatist economics, and the cult of the leader. So all of these things Trump fits. And I'm going to go through each one of these things and give you several examples of how he meets each of those things. So there's oh, so okay. I'm gonna try and do a better balance of actually going through the slideshow and looking at the comments, but I'm gonna try and focus more today on the comments that actually say something instead of just the general yelling at stuff. Okay. We are all Americans, yes, and everybody. The Nazis were Germans. I mean, being Americans does not mean we can't be fascists. If Israel attacks us, we apologize. I don't know what Israel has to do with anything. Anyway, I'm just gonna browse through the okay, everything on that list, but it's not. I almost like like when you say stuff like that, the cult of the leader. Who is our cult leader? Who are we all cultically behind? Like this is just, I know you are, but what am I? Is kind of like a not our MAGA turn, comeback for everything, even though it's not true. No, none of this stuff is the far left. What is far left anyway? Left use violence to shut down debate. No, it doesn't. Radical. Anyway, you don't seem to be all that bright, Neil. Like, can you, like, I would love to have one day where we could just have a real conversation instead of just a bunch of name calling. No, it's not. So, all right, we're going to look at what Trump is doing, and we're just going to leave it at that, and we're just going to ignore what about the left, blah, 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 blah. So, all right, let's look at what Trump is doing. You asked me if Trump was a fascist. I am showing you how Trump is a fascist. There can be more than one fascist in the world. So all your stuff about what about the left, which is nonsensical anyway, still doesn't apply, because none of that means that Trump isn't a fascist. So let's go through and look at how Trump is a fascist. All right. I know it's going to hurt your feelings, but sometimes your feelings need to be hurt. The only thing more dangerous than calling somebody a fascist that's not a fascist is justifying fascism by denying it's fascism. So number one, authoritarian leadership, power concentrated in a single individual operating above democratic constraints. Donald Trump said, I alone can fix it, rejecting institutional solutions. He has this unitary executive theory, claims absolute power over the executive branch. He says Article 2 says he can do anything he wants. He's declared himself president of Venezuela. He's threatened Fed independence and demanded Powell's firing. He's given himself, said he's going to give himself pardons. He gave blanket pardons for everybody that rioted on January 6th so they could reinstall him as a faux president. He rewards loyalty over competence in every single cabinet position. Look at RFK Jr. Guys like just completely causing all kinds of death and disease running rampant through the country. He rejects judicial oversight, attacking judges. There's over 30% of the of court orders he's rejecting, just yelling liberal judges, as though yelling liberal judges means that the judges aren't actual judges. This is literally just setting aside the democratic constraints. Like saying that other people that disagree with you don't count, regardless of whether or not they are in their position legally. That does not make them not there legally. He's governed by executive order than legislation, and this is a thing that I actually think has been getting out of hand for decades, but he's taken it to another level. Yes. Authoritarian leadership. And I want to make a point that this is not, you've got him going after, he's saying he wants to nationalize elections and rule over them. He's trying to tell other states how to run their countries or their states. He's trying to tell governors what to do. He's trying to tell other countries how to run their budget. To deny his authoritarian tendencies is to deny that you even have a nose on your face. It is so obvious that it doesn't need like all these examples, and you could go on and on and on. But I think that pretty much sums it up. It doesn't take balls to be so ballless. That's why he had to build a ballroom. He doesn't have balls. He just has he has just paper courage. What? Look it up, dude. Like he's literally, judges are telling him things like you have to no, you can't deport that guy, and then they deport that guy. Like this is not some hysterical, liberal screaming thing. It's actually true. There are anyway. There the like I said, the description has the link to the slideshow. My sources are in there. I'm not going to just sit there and play sea lion with you. If fios are laws, then we have never had anything other than kings, and the Revolutionary War was for nothing. Yeah, he should ignore the fraud in voting. There is no fraud in voting, dude. He is the fraud in voting. There's no fraud. There is not any evidence of any fraud. But he has convinced you, who I assume is an actual hardworking, honest American, that there is. And that is part of the whole cultic thing that we'll get to. And Joe Biden was your president, and you never received that. Trump is ushering the Antichrist system in. What president hasn't? Every other president other than Trump hasn't. I am not taking things every president does. No, I am not. This is a whataboutism that's even a fake whataboutism. Okay, so too brainwashed and indoctrinated. You're too brainwashed and indoctrinated by the far right echo chamber that you can't even see the behavior of the. You're such a silly little boy. No, you can't even see the behavior of the far left is fascism. You don't even understand the words you're using. When you say the far left is fascism, that is a self-contradictory clause right there. It is impossible for the far left to be fascist. Fascism is far right. You brain dead ninny. Due process under the law. The law was 99% for why we dumped tea in the harbor. Taxation without representation. That encompasses how the law was only afforded against the general population. Hey, I voted Dem for 20. Oh, yeah. Sure you did. Okay, you say that every show. You know, I'm sorry, I don't believe you. And no, he did not do more good in 1 year than the last 3 Dem presidents. No, he did not. Jeez. Name one good thing he's done. Close the border. Gotta love these. Okay, anyway. Gotta love these people who are all about the kids and aren't concerned about the fact that Trump is in 20. All right, so anyway, we're going to get back to the actual thing we're trying to talk about here. Trying to not get distracted by the comments. Somebody told me not to get distracted by the comments. Okay, so I alone can figure. So, all right, there's authoritarian leadership. We've got 11 more to go, and then we got other stuff be after that. So, ultranationalism. So, we've covered he is an authoritarian. Nobody even denied that. They just said, what abouts? He is an authoritarian. Number 2, ultranationalism. America first, deliberate use of 1940s Nazi sympathizing slogan. This is what Americans said that were Nazi sympathizers ahead of World War II. This is, and it don't act like he didn't know this. Make America great again, mythologize past of white dominance. This is also a recycled thing from the KKK. Bleep whole countries, explicitly ranking nations by race. You notice all the bleep hole countries are the ones below the equator. Good genes rhetoric. He's always talking about his good genes and his eugenics and all of that. Well, his good genes, how he's got good genes. He does not have good genes. One time I was watching, I wasn't watching. I saw this thing on a YouTube clip where there's the Trump family. It's him and Ivanka and Eric. They're all on the Howard Stern show. And there's like a really basic math question. And all 3 of them were just totally missing it. And then Donald Trump ended up convincing Howard Stern that he was right, even though like there was another person that actually had a calculator. Howard Stern got it right. Then like the black woman, I don't know what her name is. She's like got a calculator and she's like, no, this is the answer. And Donald Trump is still sitting there arguing with the calculator. That's how smart he is. That's how great his genes are. Um, Blood and Soil Defense defending Charlottesville Nazi marchers. And stop telling me about he didn't say very many people on both sides. Ooh, 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 ooh. No, if you really look at what he said when he was saying there were very fine people on both sides, he was saying that the very fine people were also some of the people that were protesting were very fine people. He was saying all of the people on the right were very fine people. Yes, he was defending the people that murdered the woman that had the audacity to think that slavery was a bad part of our history. Birthright citizenship attacks. He's trying to revoke the 14th Amendment. Not at least the birthright citizenship about that. And there's this nonsensical Federalist Society BS that's already been debunked by the Supreme Court repeatedly. It's a nonsensical thing that only idiots repeat. But hey, idiots repeat themselves a lot because they can't learn. They can't understand basic things. Like how the whole thing about, if the law doesn't apply, blah, 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 blah. No, if the law doesn't apply, that is referring to very specific people that have diplomatic immunity and whatnot. You can't be here illegally if the law doesn't apply to you, people. You can't be here illegally if the law doesn't apply to you. If you're here illegally, that by definition means the law applies to you. That's what it means that the law applies to you, is that you are here illegally. It's like, can't you even think for a moment? So yes, this ultranationalism thing, he's an ultranationalist. You want to keep going? I'll keep going. Poisoning the blood of our country, literally using the exact same language Hitler did by saying that the immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country. He's literally naming white nationalist people to his cabinet positions. NPR identified 3 officials with actual anti-Semitic ties. Stephen Miller himself is proof that he's a fascist. Stephen Miller is so fascist that Goebbels rolls over in his grave in shame. The Muslim ban targeting religious and ethnic groups for exclusion. You've got things like he's doing now, where he's like he took away temporary protected status from the Haitians, and now he's like just sending ICE in after them. Like he just took their TPS away, and then he's sending ICE in after them. And you people want to say, oh, well, they shouldn't have been here illegally, but they came here legally. He took their legal status away, and then he sent ICE after them as though they've done something wrong because they had the audacity to be targets of his own racist attacks during the election in 2024. All right, that's just fascism. That's ultranationalism. Rejection of democracy. The January 6th insurrection was a violent attempt to the January 6th, and I don't know how else I can put this, so I'm just going to say it out loud one more time. January 6th insurrection, a violent attempt to overturn the election. That's what it was. Deal with it. Sorry if it gives you a feelings boo-boo. That's what it was. That was fascism. If you are defending it, it's because you are a fascist. And if you are a fascist, you're not allowed to get your feelings all boo-booed because I called you a fascist. He wanted to suspend the Constitution ahead of the actual, ahead of January 6th in 2020. He incorporated this whole fake elector scheme, trying to get all of these people to come and pretend that they won their election in their states when they didn't. It is a fact. He did not win those states. There was no theft. There was no fraud. There were no illegal immigrants voting. It was not some democratic scheme to win the election. Donald Trump, by the way, was president in 2020, in case you forgot. Election denialism, claiming 2020 stolen despite 60 plus failed cases, which again goes back to the just rejecting what the courts say thing. He's threatened to jail opponents, including Hillary Clinton, including all his perceived enemies. He's got people coming, everyone from Jack Smith to Letitia James to whoever. He's just going out and trying to find any dirt on them he can and prosecute them. He's got, it's so terrible, so corrupt that he has attorneys resigning because they don't want to be a part of it. And then the people he puts in place are so incompetent that they can't even get a Senate approval. And so they can't even be validated by the Senate or the Constitution. This again goes back to rejecting the constitutional aspects of things. He attacks the free press as the enemy of the people. We don't even need to go into all the things he's doing against the press, including recently the prosecution of Lemon for covering a protest. So he's illegally prosecuting these protesters, and he's illegally prosecuting the media person that was doing covering the protest. That's like 2 strikes against the First Amendment in one fell swoop. Voter suppression advocacy. He's opposing mail voting, early voting, any kind of voting that he thinks is going to make it harder. Here's the thing that you may not know. Honestly, you may not know this. The average wait for a person in a precinct that votes blue is like 2 or 3 times longer, especially in red states, than it is in a precinct that votes red. It's all based on how they put the precincts and how many people per precinct there are. And it ends up being more like urban versus rural thing. But urban voters tend to have to wait longer. City voters. So when you make mail-in voting harder, it diminishes the votes from the Democrats. It used to be the other way around. We should make it easier to vote. I agree that if you're not here, if you can't vote legally, you shouldn't be able to vote at all. Nobody's advocating for that. There's not really much of a thing that happening. And anybody that does vote illegally should be prosecuted. But that's not what this is about. This is about preventing people who are citizens from voting at all. He praises dictators. He has more positive things about Xi, Putin, Kim Jong, and Orban to say than he does any of the Democrats. If he's not an authoritarian, why is he always besties with them? You won't have to vote anymore, he told the supporters. They'll fix it. And now he's trying to fix it by saying they're going to nationalize the election. Republicans should nationalize the election. Can you imagine just the excrement that would be thrown on Fox News if Joe Biden had said the Democrats should nationalize the elections? Can you imagine just the hollering there would be? And I would be upset too, because we should not nationalize the election. The reason I know that 2024 wasn't stolen is the same reason I know that 2020 isn't stolen. It's just too damn hard to steal. It is hard to steal an election because it's not just that it's state instead of federal. It's that every single precinct runs, or every single county runs their own election differently. And they have their own ways of gathering votes. They have different voting machines. They have different requirements. And you'd have to be able to learn to game all of those systems in order to steal an election. It's not like you can steal the election by just pushing a button. You have to steal an election by pushing 2,000 buttons with 10,000 people watching. That's not possible. Let's see if there's comments. I imagine there's some people yelling at me, considering I'm yelling at people. But I'm like really tired of this. Oh, he's not a fascist. You think you're tired of me calling you a fascist? Imagine how tired I am of you being a fascist. Joseph Stalin was not fascist, silly. Joseph Stalin was communist. He was an authoritarian. You seem to not understand the difference between fascism and authoritarianism. No, he was not a measure of fascism by every measure of fascism. He was an authoritarian by every measure of authoritarianism. And Joseph Stalin was a bad, bad man. And so is Donald Trump. It's kind of breaking right now, but he turned on. Thomas Massey and his wife this morning accused them of being Democrats. This is the guy he put in charge of releasing the files. He accused them of being Democrats. That's like the lowest insult that Donald Trump can come up with. All right. Rejection of democracy, threatening the curtail. We're going to just stay on topic here. I'm not going to let you guys derail it. Rejection of democracy, threatening to curtail voters, having a court that makes it illegal for armed people to stand there and watch people come to the polls, requiring IDs while okaying the shutdown of the buildings where you can get your ID. Yeah. The whole armed people there, because again, this is a great point. This is not about keeping it safe for people to vote. It is about making it certain people feel unsafe going to vote. If you make certain people feel unsafe going to vote, it's the people, those are people that don't vote. And those are the people that you know aren't going to vote for you. It's picking your voters instead of your voters picking you. Joseph Stalin was not a communist or a fascist. He was a communist. Communist is the result of being too far left. Result fascist or communist. There is a commonality between being a fascist and being a communist, in that both end up having like these authoritarian leaders. They are not the same thing, though. There's a poem that Robert Frost wrote. I support a semi-revolution. The problem with the total revolution is, ask any reputable Rosicrucian, the same people always end up on top. So he's comparing a revolution to the revolution of a wheel, where you just end up going all the way around. And so it's like the revolution is the revolution of a wheel, like literally the wheel turning around. And when it just ends up being the same people on top. I think that there is that similarity, that the end up governance of things is the same, but there's still a lot of other differences. There's a lot of commonality, but there's also a lot of differences. But communism is not the result of being too far left. That's kind of a weird thing to say. Communism is the far left. It's the farthest left you can go. It's not a result of being too far left. It's just what is the farthest left. Okay. You've made your point, Ned and Neil, and I have rejected it, and you can stop posting the same thing over and over again. Otherwise, it's just you're going to be gone. Voting Democrat or they aren't the same thing, though. Okay, so do we have anything relevant to say? We are talking about Donald Trump being a fascist. When it happens to people I disagree with, it's fine. When it happens to people I like, it's a problem. I don't know what it is there, Skippy. I'm just talking about Donald Trump is a fascist. Doesn't have to include anybody else. There are not illegal aliens voting in elections. This is objectively false. citizens. Actually, the very few cases where illegal aliens did vote in elections, they had IDs too. That's how they were able to vote. There's only been like 13 cases, I think, or something like that in like the last 45 years where undocumented migrants worked or were able to vote. And they've been arrested. I don't have any idea what that has to do with what we're talking about. Pakistan has nukes. That is a good point. But we're not talking about, I don't know why we're talking about Muslims having nukes. The reason that the Constitution doesn't nationalize the election is the same reason that we have states. Every place is different and has different needs and values. And also, this is something that I think is really smart and was avoided this discussion during the whole 2020 thing. There is a very specific reason that the President of the United States is not at all involved in the selection of the president. The Congress is. Both houses of Congress are. And so is the vice president. Because remember, when the Constitution was written, initially, the president was who won the election, and the VP was the guy who finished second. There wasn't like a running mate thing. Like George Washington didn't have a running mate. Originally, they intended the vice president was the person who got the second most votes. That, I think, lasted for like one term or something. They changed that. But then, the vice president just has an honorary role of naming who won, but not any formal role. And actually, the Electoral College, they vote, and then the Senate just acknowledges that they voted, and the House. They're determining whether what they're saying is true. And yes, I know Democrats have protested it before, and I think that Al Gore did the same right thing when he challenged that. And I think that who was it? Kamala Harris, yes. When Kamala Harris did it, she was right to do it. The whole idea that and oh yeah, let's also say Mike Pence was right to do it, to say that you don't have that right to just determine that the electoral vote wasn't really won by that. That is up to the states to decide. All the Senate and Congress are doing is acknowledging it. The President of the United States has no authority whatsoever at all. None, zip, zilch, nada in the election process. Now he wants to take it over. You know why that is? Because he's the president. That's like saying that the basketball team should be able to one basketball team should be able to ref itself and the other basketball team. Like saying the refs should be run by whichever team is the home team or something. That would be stupid, wouldn't it? Why is America calling NVIDIA chips to China and UAE? They might be nerfed, but they can always reverse engineer what was disabled inside. Oh, that's obvious. Because Trump coin, as much as I hate to say it, I think there's a connection to Trump coin and his $500 million. They bought the president. That's how they can do that. Stephanie, you are a promoter of his content. Your opinion? I have no idea what you're talking about, dude. This is the first time I've heard him. Hi, Stephanie. Nice to meet you. Thanks for promoting my stuff. This is a description, not a prediction. Thank you. It's everything you've been saying. You sound like a smart woman. No, because if you can't be anarchist, it must be fascist. I have never at all said that I'm an anarchist, and no, I don't think that there's only two things, anarchism and fascism. You're the only one that talked about anarchism here. Like, this is just your invention. Then this is your way of, if it's not fascism, it must be anarchism. The fascists of the future will call themselves anti-fascists. Yeah. Do you have anything intelligent to say? All right. So let me scroll down. All right. Communism is the result of being too far left, while also saying there should be a 100% employment before people get health care and can vote. Oh. He doesn't need to rig bleep. Well, I don't know, dude. He's the one that's trying to steal the Georgia ballots. He is literally saying he wants to nationalize the elections. This is not some hyperbolic thing I am making up. These are words that came out of his own mouth. Also, what's with the shades, dude? Do you think you look cool in those? You look like, I don't know, like a crow eyed out your eyeballs or something. And I'm not making any predictions. Pretty sure Trump is the one not a part of the uniparty. The one, uniparty, right? Yeah. I stopped reading as soon as I got to uniparty. Communism is the authoritarian left, and that doesn't mean it's there's no communist party in the United States. Democrats are not communists. Okay, so let's move on. Maybe we'll get to somewhere. So what about militarism? $1 trillion military budget, 12% increase, 20% of federal spending. His keeps talking about the most lethal fighting force as though he's the reason for it, as though he himself is a war hero. And you get all these like memes and images that are made by these, I call them sycophant fantasies, where they're like, they're sycophants and they have these fantasies. And so it's like this, I call them sycophantasies by these cult worshipers, where he's like, Donald Rambo, and he's some kind of war hero, and he's riding a tank with wings. Warrior ethos development. You get these. What's his name? Pete Kegsbreath, and his little Patton style. He thinks he's Patton, addressing the troops and telling the generals that they're too fat, and he's like thinks he's really tough. While he's sitting there insulting the leadership. He's got his little, Donald Trump had his little birthday party military parade. Well, Venezuela is no longer a threat. It's a reality. He invaded Venezuela. He conquered Venezuela. He's threatened Greenland. He's threatened Panama. He's threatened Canada. He's threatened Mexico. He's threatened Iran. He's stealing Venezuela's oil. He's using the military against the civilians and all across the country until he got told by the Supreme Court he had to stop. Now he's trying to instigate Minnesota so that he can declare the Insurrection Act and go and do it again. He's purging military officers that aren't loyal to him enough, or have too much skin pigment, or who have vaginas instead of penises. Yeah, I think some like the MAGA mind is just like, if you don't like Trump, then you're a communist, fascist, libertarian, democratic, liberal, Marxist, socialist, whatever. They just anything, any label they can think of, they just apply to you with absolutely zero concept or understanding of what any of those words mean. And then when you try to actually explain what fascism is, for instance, they end up in this kind of drivel that's going on my comments section here. I mean, this is just like MAGA stupidity on parade. You want to see a parade? Watch this. Like, I mean, there is just some. I'm scrolling past most of the dumbest stuff, but like you didn't. Well, we couldn't depend on the blue hair wearing a dress military. Yes, because that's what happened, Brad or Bud. Is all that was in the military was a bunch of women with blue hair. You can't even have blue hair in the military. If you were ever in the military, you would know that. But faddish hairstyles are not allowed in the military. It's against the UCMJ. There's actually a dress code of how you have to wear your hair. And no, you can't dye your hair blue if you're in the military. You would know that if you had ever been in the military, like I have. But it's always the people that are too cowardly to join that are the loudest about what it is. A joke that is hilarious and deadly serious to many people act like it's a game. All right. What are you even on about? Politics is a bunch of old men. No, it's not, dude. This is like, I get, this is almost as aggravating as the MAGA thing. Is the condescending, I'm bigger than all of this thing. I know everything, and I just sit there and I lord over you, and I look at you and your little petty things, and I think I am better and more, astute than you. Okay, are you Shaggy or Reggie, by the way? Are you Shaggy or Scooby? Are you Shaggy or Scooby in that picture? Because you got the brains of Scooby and the courage of Shaggy. That's such a dumb thing to say. No, it's not a bunch of old men having a pissing contest all day. It's about a very real thing. Do you think that, when Renee Good is getting shot in the face, that's about an old man having a pissing contest? Due process is not about having a pissing contest. It's about having a fundamental human right to not be persecuted by your own government for disagreeing with the person who's in charge. He can't even do one pull-up. He thinks 12-ounce curls are exercise. And fascists are far Republican. I don't even know what that means. Fascists aren't far Republican. Donald Trump. Oh, I see what you're saying. I would put it this way: some Republicans are fascists. Not everyone in either party are they. Yeah, I see. But yeah, not everybody I think what you're saying is you can't just generalize everybody in either party. And I agree with that. There are people that are Republican who aren't fascists, which is why I also I try to, at least in my language, I try to be precise in distinguishing between Republican and MAGA. Like MAGA is a self-identified subset of Republican. Actually, what I think is interesting is that, since we're talking about fascism, is that fascists, the Nazi party, and you see these people that say, oh, well, it's a national socialism. Like somehow the Nazis were socialists, even though the poem says that the socialists were the second people they came for. They just took over a party that existed. They didn't invent a party and then build it up. They just took over a smaller party. Hitler was never a socialist. But in the same way, MAGA has taken over the Republican Party. I know a lot of Republicans, and there are some, like Joe Walsh was on the show. Not the guitar player, the politician. Joe Walsh and I pretty much agree on like the Venn diagram of what we agree on is just like a very, very slight bubble that has to do with Donald Trump as a fascist. Like you can be a Republican, and not be a fascist. The Dems, etc., created the no. The Dems did not create the problem that gave us a cult. That's just a silly thing to say. Why do you guys have to say silly things like that? The Dems created the problem. No, the Dems did not create the problems that gave rise to the cult. Please be serious. Serious things are happening in our country right now, and we need serious discussions. And just finger wagging and posturing doesn't help anything. The Dems didn't create the problems that gave rise to the cult. So all the oligarchs put the stump. No, oligarchs didn't put out Stump as the solution. Most of the oligarchs didn't want Stump. What does hair color have to do with anything? Heaven forbid you use art to express yourself. I swear I am rolling my eyes so hard at you maggots that I think my eye muscles might win a weightlifting competition. And 1 and 2 and 3. Okay. Okay. Again, politics. Yeah. Politics is not a concept from centuries ago. Thank you for your condescending ignorance. Nothing worse than being ignorant and condescending at the same time. Like, oh, I know so much. Hey, see Spot run. See, I've read books. Acting like they just popped on this channel by accident and have no idea why they're here. Anyway. I'm getting a little impassioned today for some reason. You're running your mouth too much. Probably because I feel like this is so real. The thing about Trump saying we need to nationalize our election, I just cannot imagine the feces throwing on Fox News if Joe Biden had said the Democrats need to take over the elections. Do you think that anybody would just sit down and sit with that? And I appreciate that even some of the Republican leadership has said something. But the backlash against Biden, if he said something like that, would be 1,000-fold of what has come as like mild criticism by people like Thune. There are reasons that we don't have national elections. When you start talking about national elections, you lose all right to say that you're not fascist, because that is just some fascism. All right, so let's go back here. Forcible suppression of opposition, DOG weaponization against political opponents, which we have seen so much. And you've got ICE as an unchecked enforcement arm for political persecution. ICE, I know that you get all upset and get your feelings boo-booed if we say that ICE is like the Gestapo, but that's true. The Gestapo at least had the courage to not wear masks. And the Gestapo took yes for an answer when you showed them your papers. So you're right. ICE isn't like the Gestapo. The Gestapo was more honest than ICE. Secret May 2025 memo allowing warrantless home entries authorized. This is like so ridiculous that they have decided that they don't need a judicial warrant to go into your house and search your house. That's the whole point of the warrant. Like, if you can just give yourself a warrant, what is the point of the Fourth Amendment? It's just like saying, well, you can't go and search somebody's house unless you tell yourself you can. The whole point of the warrant is that somebody else, objective, a third party, has to say, yes, you have probable cause to enter that house. If you can just tell yourself you have permission, then that defeats the whole purpose. The founding fathers, you guys love to talk about what the founding fathers want. The founding fathers wrote that amendment specifically and exactly to prevent this sort of thing from happening. It's what the British were doing to them. It's the very exact precise reason we have the Fourth Amendment. That you can't do that. This is fascism. Full stop. Somebody's saying I can't answer something that because I'm not like locked in on whatever their silly thing is. So you got somebody saying, what is a woman, as though that's relevant. Women are a woman is somebody that covers her drink when Pete Kegsbreath walks into the room. Biden judge already said. Patsy agreed with that one. Brian Judge already said Operation Metro Freeze continues on, bud. Yes. The judge said, who's saying anything about Operation Metro Freeze right now? We're not talking about Operation Metro Freeze. We're talking about warrantless searches, Michael. I know that in your MAGA head, the way that you guys always think is you can't like distinguish between one thing and another. So you're sitting there conflating Operation Metro Freeze, the ability of ICE to operate in Minneapolis, with warrantless searches, the ability of ICE to just go kicking open doors, dragging out American citizens in their underwear. That's why you have to have warrants. People are like, oh, well, mistakes happen. That's why you need warrants. Actual warrant, having to go to a judge and get that warrant, would have prevented that mistake from happening, Michael. There are American citizens getting dragged out of their own house in the middle of a Minnesota winter because of this stupid, unethical, fascist, unconstitutional administrative warrant policy. That's the problem. The judge did not say that's okay. So understand what you're talking about if you're going to talk to me on my show. I am so tired of the stupid. Bud. Divide and conquer. Dude, stop. Stop with the sanctimony. Either get on the side of humanity or just shut up. It's not about divide and conquer. You're just part of the division. It's not, oh, look, oh, that side's wrong and that side's wrong. No. Sitting there saying both sides are wrong does not make you right. What makes you right, what makes a person right, is standing on the side of humanity, standing on the side of human decency, standing on the side of human rights. And if you're not standing on that side, you are standing on the wrong side. All right? I'm standing on the side. I don't care about the politics of it. I care about the humanity of it. People shouldn't be dragged out of their house in the middle of winter because they're brown or because they're Asian. When, period. Even if he was an illegal citizen, as a human being, he should have been allowed to put on clothes. Why does it have to be so evil? Why couldn't they just let him put on a pair of pants? What's going to happen if he puts on a pair of pants? Why do they have to humiliate him? Why do they have to freeze him? Why do they have to torture him? Why do they have to take a 5-year-old child and detain them and take him away from his mother? And what about all the other ones that we don't know about? Don't sit there and lecture me on, oh, see, divided, problem solved. No, dude. You're the goal. When you sit there and say that, that's what makes Trump happy. That's what makes the evil men happy. Is the posturing people that think they're better than everything else. I'm above it all. No, you're not. You're beneath it all. At least the MAGAs give a shit. You just don't even care. At least the MAGAs believe what they believe. You just think you're better. Obama did not do what Trump is doing. It's not about whether people are deported, dude. You'd say this every time, and I explain that every time. Do you ever even listen to anything? I'm a woman. I don't know. Are you shocked that we're into the transgender thing here, Patsy? We're it's like every time, every single podcast, somebody's got to sit there and turn it into, well, transgender people exist, therefore I'm right. How is my viewpoint on politics condescending? Because you're sitting there talking down to everybody that cares about it, dude. That's exactly what condescending means. You're sitting there acting like, oh, yes, if you care about it, then you are just stupid and not like me who doesn't care about it. So therefore I am better. That's condescending. Define politics. No, I am not crying, but congratulations on using the apostrophe. I am upset. That does not mean I'm crying. I know that in your little kindergarten mind, the idea that somebody being upset, that oh, he's crying. Ooh. No, I'm not crying. Penis waffle. If gender roles are so obvious, then why do we need? Well, we'll get into this in a minute. This is another actual thing about fascism. Let's get back to this. We'll come back to the comments. Let me just, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna finish this slideshow dash gummit, and then we'll do the rest of the. We'll just do the comments after the slideshow. Administrative warrants replacing judicial warrants. If you're here, if I don't know how much longer you have, Kitty, but if you could star any decent comments for me, and I'll get to those after I get to the comments. But if you don't, if you're focused on other things, don't worry about it. Administrative warrants replacing judicial warrants. I think I went on a big enough rant about that. Secretive rollout, orally only instructions, firing threats. And then, of course, there's the Kavanaugh stuff. Oh, it's not racial profiling if we say it's not racial profiling. It's racial profiling. So, forcible suppression of opposition. More on this. Over 170 citizens detained by ICE. And it's a lot more than 170. That was just 170 last year. Probably been more than 170 just in Minnesota since then. Citizens killed. Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And we're not going to get into another argument about those two. They both were murdered. Papers, please, regime. Everyone must carry. Now everybody has to carry proof of citizenship, but especially non-white people. Like I heard Kristi Noem say, everybody should carry their proof of citizenship. Why? Does that mean ICE can just assume anybody's not a citizen? And this is why I say, when you talk about due process, it becomes even more important. Mike Johnson's like, well, what are they going to do? Have to have everybody talk to a judge? Yes. That's what due process means. So, citizens killed. Renee. Sorry, Brett. Kitty's going through those for me now. Papers, please. She was trying to watch the ice hearing thing or something. Uh, papers, please. Regime. Everyone must carry citizen. January 6th pardons. He actually pardoned people that tried to overthrow the country because they tried to overthrow the country for him. Tell me that's not what Hitler would do. Go on. I double dog dare you to tell me that's not what Hitler would do. Ashley Babbitt was like glorified. She became a martyr because all she tried to do, she was just this innocent person minding her own business, just trying to kill the vice president of the United States because the vice president of the United States didn't join in Donald Trump's little coup attempt. And so therefore, like, oh, why did they have to shoot her for that? But Renee Good is trying to drop her kid off from school and go home, and she's an insurrectionist. Targeting election workers, Ruby Freeman and her daughter, like death threats. They had to literally go live in a secret hotel for like 3 months because they had amped up the hate machine against them so much. They didn't do anything wrong or illegal. They properly counted ballots, and then they were vilified by the fascists. When I say Donald Trump is a fascist, he's not the only one. The Nazis Hitler was not the only Nazi. It wasn't just Hitler and Goebbels. They were the leaders. There were all kinds of Nazis in German households all throughout the country. There's threatening media and whistleblowers. There's this new whistleblower thing, we don't even know what it says, about Tulsi Gabbard. You see that? They have it locked in a safe so that nobody can see what it says. And then she's partaking of this whole thing with stealing the Georgia ballots. At a certain point, you have to go, gee, this is a lot of things that sound a lot like fascism. And at a certain point, you have to just say, that just saying, what about Obama stops making it okay. Regimentation of society and economy, like taking it over. Tariff weaponization, even punishing opposition states. Corporate extortion, like tariff, like, oh, he's using it against states and he's using it against countries like Brazil. Oh, we're going to put a 50% tariff on you if you don't let this guy that tried to overthrow your country go free. He uses tariffs. He slams tariffs on Europe if they don't give him Greenland. Corporate extortion, demanding loyalty from business leaders. You've seen that, right? Not just demanding loyalty. He punishes companies that don't. All he has to do is say a word and their stock markets crash. And all he has to do is say a different word and their deals go through. And he only says the certain word that makes their deals go through if they buy, they invest in his ballroom, or invest in his new hobby, the art thing, or he keeps finding money for people to give him money to spend on. Meanwhile, Americans can't afford to go get groceries. Privatization push, USPS, Social Security, Medicare, VA healthcare. He's trying to privatize all of these things. Republicans have hated USPS for years because it proved that socialism worked, until they went and sabotaged it by making them do this retirement or the pension thing that no private country in the world has ever had to do. And then, then with the internet age and emails and stuff, it's actually hurt the mail industry, period. But not everybody has email and not everybody can get email. Cultural mandates, banning DEI, which is totally the opposite of what they say it is. Controlling curriculum. Can you imagine if Donald or if Joe Biden tried to control the curriculum the way that they do, trying to tell you what you couldn't put in books? They're doing book bans, saying books can't even be in libraries. This is, like maybe he's not involved so much, but the MAGA movement is certainly, oh, that book talks about gay people. So if my high school son sees that, it's going to turn him into a gay. Tech company pressure, demanding platform changes. You talk about, oh, well, Twitter banned Trump. Okay, a private company banned him. And, and then, well, Joe Biden complained about him, and that's what got him banned. Joe Biden wasn't president when he got banned. You know who was president when Twitter banned Donald Trump? Donald Trump was president. You guys cannot seem to get the timeline down on who was president in 2020. Well, technically, I think he got banned in 2021 after January 6th, but before Biden was inaugurated. But everything bad happened because of Biden. Everything good happened because of Trump. That's your thinking. That goes back into the cultic thing. Saudi deals, $2 billion to Kushner, arms deals tied to enrichment. He's made over $4 billion off of his cryptocurrency. He's got $1.5 billion airplane by the time everything is done. And don't tell me, oh, it's going to his presidential library. Like anybody else is ever going to fly on it other than him. And we're spending $1 billion in taxpayer money. And he gets the $500 million gift in spite of the emoluments clause. And he doesn't even have to pay taxes on this free plane that he gets from them and then gets upgraded by the U.S. taxpayer. Oh, well, we needed an Air Force One anyway. But it's not the new Air Force One. We're still going to need a new Air Force One. Stop with just repeating the fascist talking points. I'm so tired of all the stupid Gaza development scheme, son-in-law profiting from reconstruction. And yet you've got them openly talking about this. I guarantee you, if they have their druthers, Trump International Golf Course Gaza will be a thing. What about racial ethnic superiority? Oh, I'm tired of being called a racist. I'm tired of being called fascist. Okay, name one racist thing he's ever said. When they say that, it's just like, let's sit down and have a long conversation about racist things he has said. He talked about poisoning the blood of the country, immigrants poisoning the blood of the country, which is the exact language that Hitler used. The Central Park Five, he still insists that they were guilty. Still. He took out a full-page ad before there was even a trial saying that they deserved the death penalty for a crime they didn't commit. The only crime they committed is having too much skin pigment. The birther conspiracy, which was, don't try to pretend it's not, that was just a racist attack on Obama's legitimacy. Send her back rallies targeting congresswomen of color. Look at his disdain, his contempt for Elaine Omar. You don't think that's just because she's a liberal. He doesn't save that for non-Jewish men. I mean, Jewish men, yeah, he despises them too. Good genes at rallies. He talks about his good genes. What does good genes mean? White genes. Charlottesville, very fine people. Defending the Nazi marchers. And yes, he was defending the Nazi marchers. Stop pretending he wasn't. I am so tired of the way that has been rehashed into something like, what was he saying? When he said very fine people on both sides, he did not, he had this like qualifying statement. Well, maybe not the ones that, but he didn't even, he said something like, maybe not all of them, but he never condemned racism. He never condemned the actual racism. He's never said racism is bad. He says, I don't have a racist bone in my body, as though bones can be racist. He's used dehumanizing language like animals, invaders, infest, all kinds of just, and this is why it's so easy when he starts just killing people for being brown on the open seas, that it makes it easy for people to accept non-judicial murders. There's the Fourth Amendment, 8 anti-democratic, anti-liberal views. The Fourth Amendment, nullification. Secret memo, bypassing courts. Whoops, hang on. Judge Jones, ICE policy turns Fourth Amendment on its head. He's been attacking the First, Fourth, 14th Amendment protections. Also the Second, Third, Fifth, Sixth, Eighth, Ninth, 10th. The only one that I can think of that he hasn't really touched is the 7th. You can still sue people for over $20. Of course, he needs that one because that way he can sue the American taxpayers for stuff. The $10 billion lawsuit against the IRS. Radical left conspiracy theories, Democrats as existential threat. Yes. He's literally called the Democrats an existential threat. He says things like, if they win, you won't have your country anymore. Socialist, communist labeling of moderate Democrats. You get all upset if we say that he's a fascist just because he's a fascist, while everybody that doesn't agree with him is called a communist, and you don't bat an eye. University purges, eliminating liberal programs. He's trying to tell private universities what to do and what they can't do. The Great Replacement Theory promotion. This whole notion that we're sending, that Democrats are importing illegal immigrants so that we can take over the country. All of this nonsense. All of this is fascism. Everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is just fascism, seasoned with fascism, and topped with more fascism in a fascism smoothie. We told you we'd get here, traditional gender roles. Rigid gender hierarchy enforced by state. This is actually a facet of fascism. Abortion bans are fascist. Anti-LGBTQ policies are fascist. Do you not think that Hitler went after the gays and the lesbians and the transgender people? Yes, he did. Traditional masculinity promotion. Yeah, look at the whole idea of what a man is, and it's the kind of Pete Kegsbreath posturing that happens. Pence's mother rule enforcing gender segregation, defunding women's health, Planned Parenthood cuts, child separation policy punishing non-conforming families, using Christianity to justify policy while violating its teachings. How about propaganda and censorship? You guys want to talk about censorship because Donald Trump got banned for Twitter just for violating Twitter's. Anybody, I tell you this, any other person alive that did what Donald Trump did on Twitter would have been banned. He was not banned for being Twitter. He was banned from Twitter for being Trump. He was banned from Twitter for violating the Twitter policies. I'd have been banned from there. All he did was try to overthrow the country using Twitter. Why did he get banned? It wasn't a government that decided it. It was Twitter that decided it. Twitter is not part of the government. But he is using the government, the actual power of the government, to silence critics in the military or in the media. His fake news campaigns, delegitimizing all critical, like he just, I see so many times. Oh, where did you get that? CNN? Oh, the fake news. That's MSNBC. That's fake news. Like, because you can just start saying, oh, now CBS is legitimate, I guess, because now he owns that. But you just dismiss reality if it's reported by real news, and you just call it fake news as though you even know what fake news is. You know what? Nobody has ever benefited as much from fake news as Donald Trump. Donald Trump never would have been elected without fake news. Fake news was actual fake news. It was made up stuff, and Russia was paying for it to go to Facebook accounts. And guess what? Those Facebook accounts were people that ended up voting for Trump. And I am not talking about things that are misleading. I'm talking about things that are literally just made up. Alternative facts rejecting objective reality. I have been told so many times. I have people that swear they saw Alex Preddy holding his gun when he never held his gun. This is some serious, don't believe what you see with your eyes and hear with your ears nonsense. George Orwell is like sitting there saying, dude, I warned you. State media ecosystem, Fox News as propaganda arm. If people that watch Fox News, they don't watch anything else. And I don't mean they don't watch anything else for news. I mean, they don't watch anything else at all. Well, at least some of my wife's uncle is just, you go into his house and all that's on TV all the time is Fox News. And they just sit there and it's just a steady rhythmic falsehood after falsehood after falsehood every day. So then, some of you come on here that have just been brainwashed into this non-reality, and you think I'm the one that is not in reality. But the reality, the real world exists outside of either one of us and independent of what either of us thinks. And then that reality is consistent with what I think. It is not that it is that way because I think it is that way. I think that way because that is what reality is. They've been threatening broadcast licenses of critical media. This is not made up. They have literally done this. They have said, we are going to pull your broadcast license if you don't fire Jimmy Kimmel. Then there's also the whole thing about the mergers and stuff, where they're not going to approve these mergers unless they settle these lawsuits. So these lawsuits that he would never win on merit ended up getting settled, and then he runs victory laps around his fascism. And you guys celebrate his fascism as though that's not what's happening. You have Elon Musk bought out Twitter. The 2 months before the election, I'm not exaggerating, 2 months before the election, I would get about 30 million impressions a month on Twitter. In October, I got about 2 million. And I thought, I was like, what's going on? And I talked to some other liberal friends on Twitter, and they had the same thing. Then afterwards, there was a study that came out about blue accounts versus red accounts, where blue accounts across Twitter were just nerfed like 80%. You want to talk about social media control? Jack Dorsey didn't do that. Elon Musk did that. Elon Musk did it there's no evidence Jack Dorsey ever did that at all. But there's evidence that Elon Musk did it very, very heavy-handedly. Banning reporters, revoking credentials. He's kicking people out because they didn't, out of the press room, because they didn't say Gulf of America, which I don't even know if anybody ever even says that anymore. But these are not made up things. These are not hyperbolic things. And these are not just a handful of things. We're getting up. I have over 150 things on this slideshow, and every one of them is true. At a certain point, you have to say, maybe he's a fascist. Propaganda and censorship more. Fake news campaigns, delegitimizing all critical reportings. Oh, I think I accidentally did this twice. Okay. That explains it. I thought so. Corporatist economics. The $1.9 trillion in tax cuts, primarily benefiting wealthy corporations. We're going to have to do a show on the K-shaped recovery or the K-shaped economy. There are definitely two economies right now in the United States. And one of them is the wealthy and one of them is everybody else. And the one that everybody else is in a recession. And the one that the wealthy are in are reveling in unprecedented wealth. And you're probably, unless you're in the top 10%, you're probably in the recession. And those that aren't in a recession right now, most of you will be. It's going to end up being a 9%, the other like 99% by the time we're done. Mark my words. Regulatory capture industry executives running their regulators. So now it is, put another way, the wolves are running the hen house. They're making it illegal to, like, for instance, for the Environmental Protection Agency to protect the environment. Worker suppression, anti-union policies. This has been a thing that's been going on for years, decades. The Democrats stopped being the Democratic Union Party, so nobody's been defending the unions for decades now. And it's one of the reasons, probably the single biggest reason, we haven't seen wage growth with the middle class. It's why the middle class is declining. So I'm not going to put that all on Trump. This is one of those things that the Republicans have had this fashion tendency for years with all the right to work laws and that kind of nonsense. Corporate welfare while cutting social yes. The corporate welfare, get corporate welfare. Guess who's gotten more money than anybody in the history of the country? Elon Musk. With his little company. Oh, well, those are companies, not him personally. Okay, yeah. He cries all the way to the bank with your distinction. He's about to get the first $1 trillion company in the history of the world. You think it makes a difference to him that whether that $30 billion came to him or his company? Do you think that $1 trillion makes a difference to him? Whether is it going to change how much butter he puts on his bread? All GDP manipulate. AI GDP. The AI thing is actually a little bit. He's made it worse, but the AI thing, the whole GDP is really not going up. It's a mirage by AI. I've covered that before, but the GDP. Don't believe what you say. What it looks like. It's not real. It's all just AI investment. It's AI investment, and the rich people, 10%, the top 10% of income earners in the country account for 50% of all consumption. That means the other 50% of consumption is composed of the other 90%. And that means we're in a recession. It's just you've got enough people that make enough money and are spending enough money to obfuscate the fact that we're in a recession. There's the crypto grift where, this goes back to what Brett was talking about earlier with the AI chips, that they made this handshake deal where he gets his crypto and they get their chips. And then there was the guy with Binance that he pardoned, that he's got some money coming from that one too. His Mar-a-Lago pay-to-play member. He's got all kinds of grifts going on. He is making more money. Oh, but he doesn't even keep his paycheck. His paycheck is laughs at his paycheck. His paycheck is $400,000 a year. His paycheck means nothing to him. When you sit there and you say, oh, he doesn't even keep his paycheck, it just makes me aware that you have no idea how scammed you are. You ever watch that show? I don't know if anybody has ever watched this show. I can't even think of the name of it. It was a British show about people that ran this con. I don't know, why can't I think of the name of it? Anyway, they said that the big thing was the big way to get the theme of the show. You always had to put in some of your own money to sell the con. Like that's the grifter code. You put in some of your own money, and then people know it's not a con because you wouldn't put your own money in it. But your own money that you're putting in it is you're going to get it back, and it's only a fraction of what you're going to end up making. Yes, Mark. I'm the one that's clueless. He doesn't take a paycheck. Yes. I just totally did not see that retort coming. It's like, come on. Golden statue at CPAC. Okay, cult to the leader. They literally prayed to a golden statue of Donald Trump. I don't know how much more cultic than you can get than that. That to me, that's pretty darn cultic. Trump flags replacing American flags. God sent Trump religious framing as divinely chosen. I've seen people say things like God, like saying things like Trump is the second coming, saying that Trump is better than Christ. Like they reject actual teachings of Jesus as they accept the actual teachings of Trump. And they call themselves Christians. He says I could shoot somebody and not lose votes. I'll one up him on that. He can try and overthrow the country and get more voters. Family dynasty, children in government positions. He's like Laura Trump sitting there acting like she's achieved something in her life, like she's really like would have gotten on a Spotify single with that voice of hers. Oh my goodness. She broke auto-tune and she thinks she can sing. Messianic imagery, Trump is Jesus comparison. Okay, anyway, that's just repeating his stuff. His merchandising cult, endless products, coins, NFTs, Bibles, his Constitution, Bible and stuff. You can tell, Republicans, one thing about, shouldn't say Republicans, MAGAs, they never stop talking about the Constitution and the Bible, and they never read the Constitution or the Bible. They rally worship. There is like a zealotry, a religious style zealotry around these MAGA rallies. You have people that go from rally to rally. They're in a cult. This is what people in cults do. You have people that have like literally just maxed out all their credit cards on Trump merchandise and stuff and recurring payments to the Trump Defense Fund. You have people literally kissing the ring. He says things like, I know more than the generals, and they say and they believe him. And yet somehow they think that he is the one that is the eternal victim. Everybody's just out to get Trump just because he, has 27 women that are saying that he, violated them, just because his name is in the Epstein files thousands of times, just because he literally stole nuclear secrets from the White House, just because he literally tried to overthrow the country. Oh, we just persecute him and persecute him just because we said that a judge said that his house was valued at what Trump said it was valued at. And that was persecuting him. maybe you are in a cult, and maybe that is an example of being fascist. All right, so now that's part one of this. I'm going to go back into the comments now and take a look at some things. I thought we were going to have some start can. Oh, man. Oh, we got some starred comments. I'm going to go through the starred comments. Thank you, Patsy, for filtering. Donald Trump is named in the Epstein files more times than Jesus named in the Bible. I think his name is in the Epstein files more times than there are words in the Bible. Now I'm agreeing with you. However, politics is so deeply rooted, but I don't understand what the difference is. What do you think politics is? Because I just think politics is a vague word here. And I don't think it's the reason. Like, my understanding of politics is not that this is the reason. I think that politics, rightly understood, is the solution. Politics, rightly understood, is the way out of it. And part of the politics of getting out of it is to stop diminishing the important aspects of politics, like actually having conversations, like actually having debates. The way out of it is to persuade, to discuss, to talk, to get people to understand things, to reason with people. It is not, you can't have a nonviolent protest with just silence. You need to have discourse. So to me, politics is the politics of discourse. So that is why I just have to say I don't accept politics is what rooted us in this nonsense. I think politics is the way out of this nonsense. Michael, you are a brainwashed sheep with no ability to discern fact from fiction. I don't know what exactly prompted that, but I am 100% convinced that you are right when you said it. GOP equals guardians of the pedophiles. Ooh. I call them got owned by Putin. Trump would not know what a library is, so I call BS. Okay, the Trump library. I think I know what the Trump library is going to be. The Trump library is going to be an empty building. Maybe he'll buy the building on the Nick Shirley video, call it the Trump library, and then pocket the rest. You guys need some moderation here. Quality over quantity. These are just trolls. Thanks, Brett. You're right. That's why we got Patsy on the job. I'm saying that's one of many divide and conquer, but it's. I don't think it. I like. You're saying that's one of the many divide and conquer tactics. I don't think that's one of the many divide and conquer tactics. I think that standing for what's right is standing for what's right. I'm not being divided by being human or by standing up for humanity. Yep, remember, I believe most of the Republican Party are uneducated. This is a really interesting question. There are some people that I know, like people I know. Like, I'm a pretty smart guy. I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to lie or anything, or like be humble or artificially humble. I'm a pretty smart guy. I read a lot. I understand a lot. There are people, though, that I know that are smarter than me. One of them did his undergrad school at UPenn and got his law degree from University of Chicago, and then he got his the PhD equivalent of a law degree. What is that called? A JD. He got that from UCLA. This guy basically memorized the dictionary when he was 12. I mean, this guy is smart. This guy, one of the smartest people I ever met. But when it comes to politics, it's just like he turned off that part of his brain and he's just full blown MAGA. And I do not understand it. I'm just like, dude, how can this be? Like, you are smarter than me. And they just, some of them, they're plugged into this core belief thing, and they can't challenge their own belief. But so I think there are people that are Republican that are genuinely intelligent and they are genuinely educated, but for some reason they turn off that part of their brain when it comes to time to, if Joe Biden were doing the same things that Donald Trump is doing, they would freely acknowledge they are wrong. Sorry, I need to take my antacid stuff so I don't end up keep burping while I'm talking. These are the adult people, and they're still asking people what a woman is. Like, why does that even matter? Why does it matter if people like it's not that people are confused about how penises and vaginas work. It's people understand that brains also work. And some of us are just sympathetic to people who don't have the alignment between their brain chemistry and their genitals. And we're okay with that. We don't need to browbeat them into submission. Why it is important to other people, how other people choose to live their own lives. Like if somebody were to force you to chop off your penis and live as a woman, I could understand why that would be upsetting. But nobody's doing that. Nobody's forcing people to be trans like Donald Trump is, or it says. MTG. It's funny that somebody named MTG would be saying this, because MTG is kind of, anyway. What do you guys think about MTG's pivot? She's sort of like the new moderate Republican. I hate transgender people, but we shouldn't be conquering other countries or something. Transgender is one of their favorite deflections: deny, deflect, project, insult. MAGA following their shepherd's example. Yeah. I think, just still thinking about MTG. Like, if she wants me to believe that she's reformed, she needs to apologize to David Hogg first. Then what's her name? The Sarah McBride. She needs to apologize to Sarah McBride. She needs to apologize to people that she has dehumanized because of her own political rhetoric. If she wants to talk about turning down the toxicity, she needs to apologize for turning up the toxicity. No, you did talk down. I know you don't understand how you talk down, but when you sit there and you condescend as though you somehow have this truth that the rest of us are not privy to, and you deny our own agency in how we discuss politics and consider politics, then you are talking down. Why don't you give taxpayer money to people that don't have any legitimate claim? Why do you want to give? What is the legitimate claim? Who do we want to give it to? I don't. Okay, so like that's such a tricky question. Do you want to give Donald Trump $10 billion because an IRS agent leaked his tax files? He doesn't have any legitimate claim to that $10 billion. Who do we want to give taxpayer money to that don't have any legitimate claim? And what makes a claim legitimate? I don't know what you're talking about. I honestly don't. Like, there's so many things that people say when they make that kind of argument. So I'd say it has to do with the specifics. If a family has undocumented parent One parent is undocumented, the other parent is an American citizen, and the children are all born here, and the children are all American citizens, and the children are on Medicaid. Does that child have a legitimate claim to Medicaid? Because one thing that happens is that places like the Heritage Foundation will say that this money is going to families that have at least one undocumented resident. And it's not the undocumented resident, that the undocumented parent isn't getting Medicaid. And then, so who's getting who's getting money with no legitimate claim? Why is it okay when corporate, what makes a claim legitimate? What makes it illegitimate? The Constitution guarantees every person in the U.S. due process. Go cry about it. It's really that simple. And I say this like it seems like almost every show nowadays. Either everyone has due process or nobody does. Because if anybody doesn't have due process, then anybody can be deported, including, Donald Trump. The next president could just go along and say, "Oh, you're illegal." And he's like, "Oh, I've got my papers. I can show you." No, you can't. And, then he wakes up in Liberia. They want to abolish the Constitution. Trump literally wanted to set aside the Constitution once already after he lost the election. Now the January 6s are, yes. Well, at least there's that. The thing is there's nobody actually tracking that. So there is some speculation, and I think some valid speculation, that some of the people that have joined ICE are getting are former January 6s. But I've looked that up and I couldn't confirm it. Boxwine just said she won't honor the Second Amendment. I know that was here. Let me see if I can. I made this little meme today. I'll see if I can bring it up. We'll go through the rest of this in a minute. I thought that was hilarious. Is this it? So here. This is my meme. I'm not the greatest meme maker, but at least I have a sense of humor that is better than most of the MAGAs. The MAGAs are always like, the left can't meme us. They steal the memes that we make. Okay, how do I? Okay. So here we go. Dana Loesch warns, the Democrats are coming for your guns. Janine Shapiro, hold my box wine. Get it? Because, like hold my beer, but it's, anyway. Didn't get a laugh from Patsy, so I imagine it didn't get. Patsy, if I don't get a laugh from you, I'm just assuming nobody laughed. So I need at least a courtesy laugh just to. So. All right, so let's go back to this one. All right. Like, I'm back here. Okay. They don't want to. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm trying to find my place again. What's the new clause they are creating where you can't take a gun to a protest? Well, you can take a gun to a protest, but you can only take a gun to a protest if you're taking it to shoot libtards with. Like, if it's Kyle Rittenhouse gun, then it's okay. But you can only take guns to Constitution or take guns to protests if you're shooting libtards. Libtards aren't allowed to carry them. If a libtard takes a gun to a protest, then that means that ICE can shoot them in the head 10 times. He wants MAGA to have guns, not the rest of the people. And it was like I was talking about this yesterday. That there's an irony to this that they seem to miss that the whole Second Amendment was their whole thought about the Second Amendment is that the second, like the Second Amendment protects the first, right? The gun protects your right to protest. That is what they have been saying for like 40 years. That's why we can't have any kind of gun control. And now they want to say you can't have a gun at a protest. So let me ask you, MAGA, how is the Second Amendment going to protect the first if you can't have a gun while you're protesting? How can the Second Amendment protect the first if you can't wear your Second Amendment while you're exercising the First Amendment? Clip that. If I say clip that, that means it's going to make a clip of what I just said. Okay. Kristi Noem needs to go. Hey, ho, ho. Kristi Noem needs to go. I kind of like that. It's okay for deportation orders to be legal. But everything that DHS, yeah. And this is like so I'm sorry, I'm going to finish Nunya Business 33. I like your name. Kristi Noem needs to go. It's okay for deportation orders to be legal, but everything that DHS is illegal. The goon squad got to go. They're acting like the Gestapo now that we're having to carry our papers. I've been thinking like there's this kind of like Gestapo, like ice is to ice cream as ice cream. Ice is to Gestapo as ice cream is to gelato. Like there's subtle differences, but they're more or less the same thing. I'd like to see receipts on that ballroom too. Yeah. Well, and we don't know who's paying what. We don't know what it's going to cost. We don't know anything about it. We know that it wasn't going to require any damage to the East Wing. So I have a feeling that maybe some other things he's going to say about that aren't true. Don't forget the untraceable Trump coin. There is so much. That man is more corrupt. I think he is honestly the most corrupt person in the history of our country. That guy is more corrupt than what's his name? The guy who's so corrupt they made up the scheme. What you know who I'm talking about, Patsy? The famously corrupt guy that had all the scams like 20 years ago, or not a Ponzi scheme, but anyway. The frogs are turning gay. They're eating pets and crucifixes. Yeah. Those gay frogs, gay pet eating frogs. Everyone that is not MAGA is a radical left liberal communist fascist, from what I understand. Down with the government. According to Lawrence Britt's 14 characteristics of fascism, the Trump's administration gets 14 out of 14. Yeah, there's that one. There's one I've seen with 8. It's like it's hard to find a list of fascist characteristics that Trump doesn't like meet every one of. He is a fascist. I mean, it's like it's so funny when people say define fascism. Like, if you say define fascism by asking that question, you have shown you do not understand what fascism is. Like I was saying at the start of the show before most of you are here, fascism is not so much defined as described. Fascism is something that meets certain characteristics. And Donald Trump meets those characteristics. It's not an ideology. It's a framework of enforcement. It's 1984. There's only now. The whole Bernie Madoff. Thank you. Yes, that's who I was thinking of. I knew Kitty would come through for me. Kitty's smarter than me. Pedridge Farms remembers. Why bring a gun? he didn't bring a gun to a peaceful protest. He wasn't at a peaceful protest. And he just, if you really want to know if it really matters to you, he apparently just wore a gun all the time, just like lots of MAGAs do. He has a constitutional right to wear a gun. He happened to have a gun on him because it was a day of the week. And he wasn't at a protest. And you need to stop conflating protests with being a legal observer and being able to blow whistles and stuff like that. Is all part of being a legal observer. That's not a protest. And the only ones that made it unpeaceful were ICE by taking away people's constitutional rights. And that is why there are protests. So what about, just side note, how did I not think of this? So I just had, you're gonna like this one, Patsy. That now, so you heard there's all this stuff about like child pornography being peddled on X, and we've been talking about the Epstein files. So now we can talk about the X files. the Musk X files. And then Patsy's sitting there. I want to believe. Oh man, I love X Files. So that's not a dish of the show. I mean, Derek, I'm not disagreeing with you, but protests can turn violent at any point in time. But if you intend to be peaceful, there's plenty of other options. But he wasn't bringing a gun to a protest, so it doesn't really matter. There wasn't a protest. There wasn't like thousands of people standing around waving signs. This wasn't a protest he was at. He was a legal observer, and he has every right to be a legal observer. And number two, it doesn't matter if he brings a gun to a protest. Nobody asked why Kyle Rittenhouse brought a gun to a protest. He brought a gun to a protest because he wanted to shoot protesters. Why does MAGA take their guns everywhere? It's there was an article, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago I read, where there was a survivors group of mothers whose children had been shot and murdered. And a bunch of gun nutters of some sort decided they had a weekly meeting at like a Panera Bread or something. And they were just sitting there having their little survivors meeting about, their sons being murdered. And these MAGA gun nutters decided they were just going to wait out in the parking lot with their AR-15 strapped over their back. Why do they have to take their guns there? Why? Like, sometimes I wonder, some people are just sick. Why did they need a guns at a peaceful protest? King George III, c. circa 1775, probably. Good point. Charlie Kirk said, guns are for fighting an overarching government. And that's still the irony that I cannot get over. The whole thing, like, why do they need guns at a protest? How can you say in one sentence that guns protect you from the overreaching government, and then in the next sentence say, why are you bringing guns to a protest? Yeah, he has. I didn't even get into all the articles. I have another slideshow I never did finish getting through, just showing all the articles in the Bill of Rights he's violated, and how the there's so many parts of the Constitution. I think the last I heard, and I last looked it up like a few months ago, there were 550 lawsuits against him for violations of the Constitution. In various ways. I don't like everything he says and does. I don't like Bondi, but I don't like Cash. What I do know, things aren't better now. And it's not senile. It's you spelled senile wrong, Mark. Things aren't better now. They objectively aren't. There's no way that they are better. Like just saying things like that. Like actually, how are they better? Crime is way down. Is it? There's not like all this money coming in. None of the things Donald Trump is saying to you are true. Objectively, things are not better. For 90% of Americans, things are worse. Free speech and gun laws are for protection from the government. Well, no. Free speech and gun laws are for protection from the libtards, Long. That's what I have learned. Derek, your only evidence is trust me, bro, I was there. Meanwhile, we have video evidence from multiple angles. Oh, okay. I forgot. I'm in the starred comments, so I'm not seeing what Derek is saying, fortunately. Looks like Kitty had to jet. She's got appointments to make. We'd be so much worse without her. You are correct. It's a vague word. My understanding of politics was about balancing and creating a thriving society. However, I tried to bring up the fact we've deviated from that path. It's a joke. Okay, I'll give you that. And I'm sorry for like jumping down your throat. You've been more than conciliatory towards me. And so I appreciate that. And I apologize for getting outside of the MAGA mania helps me. There is just the hostility and it's just the ignorant hostility I get tired of. And then I misjudged you and I apologize. I agree with talk, but liberals can't and don't do that, sir. They are and have been, but no, they aren't, Mark. They haven't been. Was January 6th violent? Can you admit that? I mean, you say that is just objectively false. It's just objectively false. The right has been far. What's his name? Who blew up the Oklahoma City building? There's an occasional attack from the left, but they're not celebrated by the left. They're not pardoned by Democratic presidents. The only ones that celebrate the violence are the right. I'm waiting for the flat earthers and anti-moon landing guys to start hating. It is going to be a digital library. I wonder if the Epstein files will be in the Trump library. He's gonna, and then like they'll be released in 50 years. They've deviated from the core of it. And the how can I paint the other guy so bad it doesn't know. And this is okay. Now we're talking because this is my favorite song. What you're talking about right now. For instance, I think that immigration reform. We need immigration reform. Like nobody will say we don't need immigration reform. We need immigration reform. But we have so many arguments about immigration reform. We can't have immigration reform because it's just everything's got to become polarized and extreme, and you can't have a genuine conversation about how can we actually reform immigration. It becomes this closed border versus open border kind of stupid conversation. That I agree with you. I think that's a great point, and I think it's that way with gun control. I think that's that way with a lot of things, that we just can't have honest conversations because everything is driven by the polarizing wedge issues. Everybody calls them, what are they? Cultural wars. I don't think they're cultural wars. I think they're wedge issues. They're deliberately driven in to keep us from being able to talk about the things we need to talk about. Like, honestly, genuinely, sincerely, the best thing in our country, the best thing that could happen to our country right now is actual true immigration reform. We need immigrants in our country. We need low wage immigrants. We need high wage immigrants. They make America better. And I don't just mean like we need a legal way for people to migrate. Right now, there's just not much way for poor people to migrate. And we need that. That's what drives the American dream, is the dreamers. How can you have the American dream if you don't have dreamers? And I don't mean dreamers like Obama dreamers. I mean people that come over here with a dream that if they work hard and if they do things right, they can become something. That's a great comment, dude. Yes, you have the core of the politics, which is to balance and organize. Then you've got the current situation of politics. It's grown into an issue of how can I overcomplicate this to make me sound correct? The Trump library will be a box of evidence. Derek, there is also the possibility. What if I had my druthers? You know what the Trump library would be? You know how when you walk out of prison, you get that envelope that has your belongings? That would be the Trump library. Derek, there is also a possibility of being blinded by bias. Due process is not an official thing. Due process is a legal process by which is due based on the situation. Immigration enforcement falls under the executive branch. Well, it doesn't just fall under the immigration falls under the executive branch, but the process still also falls under the judicial branch. That's kind of the whole way things work out. Now, it is a different process in that the process is not the same as for a criminal prosecution, but there still is a process to. This is can't think of the name of the court decision, but there's been a few going back 100 years. We didn't even have illegal aliens until, for the most part, like we had our first immigration laws, which only applied to Chinese people in like the 1890s, and then around the 1920s something, we started having like actual immigration laws that were, even our immigration laws, people don't want to hear this, but our immigration laws are racist. If you are like from Norway, and your chances of being able, if you're from Norway and you don't have a relative living here, your chances of being able to get a visa to come over and live in America are like 50 times greater than if you live in Nigeria. Like we have actual racial bias built into our immigration laws, and we need to change those because, like I said, you need people that want to fill the dream to come and do the bottom jobs, not because they're slave labor, but because they think their labor will provide for something. Did you know that immigrants are twice as likely to start their own business as native born Americans? Not Native Americans, but like actual people that are born here. You're more than twice as likely to start your own business if you move here than if you're born here. And that's because people that move here with the American dream in mind. And so we need people with that dream. That dream is what makes a people grow. Because you know what happens when an immigrant comes here and starts a business? They hire people. Everybody wants to say they take away jobs. They provide jobs. Children aren't invaders, old women aren't invaders, and young men that are just coming over here to work for a living aren't invaders. The whole invasion thing is just more racist, fascist rhetoric from Donald Trump that people then pick up and regurgitate and then say, why are you saying I'm a racist? Why are you saying I'm a fascist? And it's because you're saying racist and fascist things. Don't walk like a duck and quack like a duck if you don't want to be called a duck. If it becomes condescending the moment I state, if you think this is good, you are wrong. If you follow this, you are stupid. Your original rebuttal is condescending. That's a stupid way to see it. Yeah. I again, I assume that you did not, that was posted before my apology to you. You want them to assimilate while you talk poop about them and act racist towards them. Yes. And why the Irish didn't assimilate? We have St. Patrick's Day. Have you ever, like, do these people, like, consider anything in American culture? Like, virtually anything. Our TV, most of our TV, the premise of TV programming, it started with things like I Love Lucy, which was inspired by vaudeville, which was imported from Ireland. Like, Irish immigrants brought over vaudeville, and they went and they had these vaudeville plays and stuff like that that people paid money and went to. That evolved into TV. The whole, the Eastern Europeans brought over their music, and they brought in Broadway. Our food, we have, of course, we have like Italian food and pizza and Chinese food, and you just open up your DoorDash app, and all the food that you can buy is almost all of it is inspired from another culture. Even hamburgers and hot dogs come from Germany. Even apple pie comes from Holland or the Netherlands. Virtually everything about American society got its roots from immigrants. So when you talk about, oh, why won't you assimilate? The America is assimilation. Like our culture is a culture of assimilation. It's like taking a bite of soup and blaming the carrots for tasting like chicken. Or not trying to taste like chicken. It's like the whole thing is the whole thing. Was it illegal? Just because you say that doesn't make it true. Some clowns that said show your papers during COOF. What is illegal? I'm sorry, I'm like behind and stuff, and so I don't know what you're referring to. Stephanie, hey, thanks, Stephanie, if you're still here. Okay. So I'm gonna go to the bottom here. Unfortunately, my whatchamacallit. Yes, on natives are more likely to build rather than settle because America hasn't quite destroyed that dream yet. Yeah. I mean, I laugh because it's true. It's like one of those, it's funny because it's true things. It is. Most, especially now, like the native born Gen Z, and is it Gen Z? Is there a Gen Y yet? Or anyway, I forget. I don't know. Like the generation, the millennial kids generation, like that generation is frustrated. They things are getting almost impossible for them to afford. They went to college, and now they have to pay these massive student loans. There's I was studying this not too long ago, and if you break out the statistics of it, and you look at three things: student loans, housing, and healthcare, and you add those three things up, it now takes up about 80% of somebody's income, like a younger person's income, like in your 20s, it makes up about 80% of your income. And that means that the rest of it, that's not including food even. That's not including clothing. And so, and you did all of this so that you can make a living, and you went to school and you got your degree like you were supposed to, and now you can't even make a living. And then people are like, well, you shouldn't have taken out that student loan without reading the contract, as though, how are they supposed to know what's in the contract and what all that means if they haven't gone to school? Like, why is it their fault for signing the contract and not the people that gave them the loan's fault for giving them that contract? Why is it the people that willfully stole that person's money, which is what it is? You have people that have been paying their student loans on time every month for 20 years, and they still owe almost what they borrowed. The people that wrote those contracts are the people that wrong, not the people that signed them. You've got housing prices going up, and you've got Donald Trump saying he wants them to keep going up. But that's okay, because now we're going to give you a 50-year mortgage, which means that you can work on paying your house off for the rest of your life, and it still won't be paid off. And so down you won't have any wealth to transfer to your children. I will take an immigrant. The Irish fought back and hard, but the IRA is rarely discussed. Well, the IRA was more of a British Ireland thing. People forget about that whole thing is not discussed that much anymore. It's actually, when people talk about Clinton, like, part of his legacy should be he really ended that. Like, he was really, really instrumental in resolving that. Liberals don't even know what a fascination. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. The U.S. is a melting pot of culture. It truly is. That's what, like, I know people say this and it gets kind of overused and oversaid, but it's really true. This is what makes America great. It just is. You want to make America great again? Make immigration happen again, like legal immigration. Every single step of the way throughout American history, it has been immigrants that have made America great. And I'm being, I'm not, when I say immigrant, understand it in a certain way. Immigrants, whether they came over here on purpose or not, they were still forced to come over here, because slaves had a lot to do with America being great. And that's not like some kind of condoning of slavery. It's, you look at where we would, like, almost all our music, I was talking about culture, almost all our music, it doesn't come from Mozart. It comes from the slaves. Jazz, rock and roll, rap, all that comes back. What did they call that? Well, there's a call and response. It's the kind of music that the slaves had. Call and response. Rock and roll, country music, bluegrass, gospel, all that evolved from call and response. It was that, look it up one time. I went down this rabbit hole. I definitely tend to be the guy that goes down rabbit holes, and I did not know about this. It's really interesting. It's a big, huge part of our American history. and we don't even know about it. And it was designed to be that way, Rodney, but people have forgotten. The economy is dying. The education system is failing. Jobs refuse to hire. The stagnation and its AI is not helping. I'm telling you, AI is going to be the death of the economy. AI, there's like a perfect storm brewing. One of them is AI. AI right now, there's a huge amount of money invested in AI, and if you take, I mentioned this earlier, if you take AI out of the economy, like just the AI investment part out of the economy, then our growth in 2025 was like 0.6%. It was just virtually flat. Then if you were to like most, the reason that we had these massive, like both under Biden and under Trump, these million person job adjustments where it's like all of it, that had nothing to do with either Biden or Trump. It's these AI startups. And what they do is they start their business and they're trying to get their AI coached. And so then they'll have like 20,000 people for 3 weeks, or 2,000 people, I don't know. They'll have all these temporary jobs where people jump on and, like they have places like Mercer that, farms out these jobs and they're temporary jobs. And so the way that the algorithm works in terms of predicting these jobs is they say, okay, there's this new business. And so that means that there's this many new jobs. But AI is sort of distorting everything because the new jobs they create are just to train the AIs, and they're training the AIs so that once the AI is trained, then they don't have to pay anybody to do that job. That's the whole point of AI, is to replace jobs. And so all this money getting invested into AIs inflates this job growth number that's not real jobs. So then when the actual job report comes out and the actual job numbers come in, then you're like, oh, that's nowhere near as many jobs. And we haven't adjusted the job algorithm yet to agree with that. So that's why it looks like unemployment is doing so much better than it is, because there's all these fake jobs going around. So that's, like AI has both of those aspects going on. One, all this fake investment. Oh, and by the way, on the fake investment side, no AI companies right now are running at a profit. And they're all borrowed up to the eyebrows, and at any given moment, the whole thing can come crashing down. And then you got all these fake jobs that aren't tied to it. So that's number one, AI and the fake AI boom. That's can make the .com bubble bursting look like nothing, and it can make the housing mortgage crisis look like nothing. There's elements of both of those in there. Because with the AI thing, a lot of these companies are in bed with each other and taking money, borrowing money from each other. And there's just all kinds of weird, unmonitored stuff going on that we don't even know who's got what. So anyway, you could have a stock market crash that rivals 1929, and you could have this bubble burst like 2000, like the .com bubble, and then you could have this kind of related, overlapping, inbred stuff that's going on between corporations, like you did with the .com bubble. So you could have a serious economy with those three things just by themselves. But then you also add in the tariffs, which that also facilitated. Well, they tried to recover the economy from Black Tuesday using tariffs, which that worked out horribly. And then you've got the tariffs, the .com, and now you're also talking about the austerity cuts in the federal budget. Austerity generally tends to cause recessions, if not or exacerbate them. And then on top of all of that, you've also got the mass deportations, which is another thing independently all by itself that could cause a recession. So our economy is really screwed. Like it's not about when we're going to be in a recession, but it's about how bad and how long. So sorry, job refused to hire. I sort of went on a riff there. You're forced into debt if you want to thrive. Average income is 60K. Average home is above 200K. Right. There's what is that? It's a name. Like there's a acronym of a name. I can't remember what it is. But the that looks at the actual cost of living and how much it costs money to live, and it's like it's actually basically to pay your bills. It's $80,000 a year a household now, and the average median or the median household income is like less than that. And like the way that we look at the poverty level is way different than most countries. Most people don't even know how we got the like what the poverty line is, because if you hear this, you will be like, this is insane. Back in the 60s, they were trying to establish what the poverty line was. And so they asked this woman to figure it out. And at that time, it made sense. The She went to a grocery store and she said, okay, it takes about 30%, like the average family spends about 30% of their money on food. And so she went and said, what can I buy? What's the cheapest you can eat? And so she filled up a basket with food, and it was like a jar of peanut butter, eggs, like nothing expensive, like maybe one loaf of bread. I can't remember what it was, but it was a pittance of food. It wasn't like she was filling it up with meat and stuff. You could like get 3 ounces of meat a day or something. Anyway, so she filled up this basket of food, and then she um, took the total cost of that food, and she said, okay, that's how much it costs to eat per day. So this is how much it costs to eat per week. And so then she took that and she said, this is, then she figured out, if that's 30%, then 100% of this would be this, basically multiplied it by 3. And then that was how much it costs to live off of a month. That's the cheapest you could live off for a month, she said. So that's the poverty line. That's how we got that. We still basically have just updated the shopping cart. I mean, like we have a literal shopping cart, not an actual physical literal shopping cart, but a hypothetical shopping cart with hypothetical groceries that cost an actual amount of money, and then we use the money that cheap food costs as the basis for forming the poverty line. I don't know if you knew that or not, but it's kind of crazy, right? And at the time, it made sense because it actually did take up about 30% of your budget. But now, how much? Okay. Sorry, gotta type here. So now it's about 12.9% that we spend on food. So let's just round it off to 15% instead of 30%. When she formed this, it was 15 or 30%. Now it's less than 15%. That means that right now our poverty line is actually less than half of what she decided it was then, based on that 30% number, right? That means our poverty level right now is less than half of what it was in 1962. And not because people are making less money, but because everything has gotten more expensive relative to food. And like, don't hate her about it. She even testified before Congress that this should be changed. Congress has never changed it. It needs to be changed. This is not how every other country in the world determines what the poverty line is. It was something she had like a week to figure it out, and this is what she did. I mean, she literally went to an actual grocery store and put actual groceries in an actual grocery cart. So anyway, isn't that crazy? Schools don't even teach finance or politics. Do they not? You aren't taught history as it was, but as they want it presented, a good portion of historical issues were about skin. It was, how do I profit? I don't understand. Are you saying that they do teach racism now, or that they don't teach racism? Like, I mean, not teach that you should have racism, but that it existed. All right. Yes. When I was in school, I was taught that white people migrated south and then they got more skin pigment. I think that's funny. Like black was the evolution from white. Like people were originally black and then they were white, and then they just, because they were in the African sun, they turned black over years. They evolved into black people. The older stuff is good, but country today is god awful. If you play country music backwards, you get your dog, your woman, your job, and your best friend back. AI should go back to being created to sort code and algorithms, not creating said algorithms. I don't know what said algorithms are. I'm not saying that to diminish what you're saying. I don't know what a said algorithm is. I am glad the trolls are gone. That was bad for a moment. Yeah, I think it was my hero Kitty. Statistics are a way of manipulation. 13% sounds better. Yeah, there's a lot of when I was like for a good 10 years, I wrote about basketball. And you can really, like, if and so I wrote, like, I invented some of my own statistics and stuff to try to make determinations about things. I even had Mike D'Antoni one time, like, offered to do an interview with me because he was interested in some of my articles. So that was kind of cool. He's actually a really, really friendly guy. But if like, as I learned about statistics and stuff, I started to learn also how you can manipulate them, and how you can just say certain things that make it sound really impressive, or like make it sound like it's much more extreme. One of the ways that the Trump administration manipulates statistics is when they talk about the percentage of ICE attacks. They're up 3,000%, but when you look at it and it's like, okay, well, first they're using arrests instead of actual convictions. They're arresting a lot of people and then letting them go. But the you can't just look at the percentage. You also have to look at the numerator and the denominator. And it's like, okay, yeah, it went from 5 to 35, and so it's like, oh, that mean, it went up 700%. Yeah, it went up by 28. And like, in terms of convictions, there's actually less people, believe it or not, there were less people convicted of assaulting ICE agents in 2025 than there were in 2024. Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks for your contribution. Sorry about the flu. Tariffs were a mistake. They should have lowered them if they wanted an economy boom. Is that incites reason to trade? Yeah. Donald Trump just does not understand how they work. I obviously don't understand tariffs. No, I very much understand tariffs. I'm sorry, but if you're taxing me 15% on something you're buying, why would I want to trade with you? Like, the tariffs have not, the amount of money. First of all, Donald Trump was saying that tariffs, other countries pay tariffs, and MAGA has tried to walk back this. He's never actually even tried to walk it back, but JD Vance tried to like say, well, what he means is this, is that if you put tariffs on other countries, then that will promote investment here in America because it'll be cheaper to build things here than to import them. And, that had some merit, but even then it was questionable, like in the 1890s. But it's not then, it's now. And we have a worldwide global market and things are cheaper in other places. And you can't like be both for capitalism and then like high tariffs. Like those things contradict. So, yeah, Fat Bong Shaggy. Actually, I just read your name for the first time. That's so funny. Does Scooby get stoned too? I think I've said before, I think that so many problems could be solved if MAGA would just get stoned. China, Canada, and pretty much every other country was upset with the tariffs, so they started trading with other countries. Yeah, I think there was India and Europe just signed a huge deal, bigger than any deal that Trump made. And there's all this fake trillions of dollars that he says is coming in. That's why I got distracted. The foreign investment actually went down in 25. We had less foreign money invested. So this whole notion of how tariffs are really helpful for the economy, but nobody wants to admit it, and you just have to, like bite down hard, and it's going to suffer. It's going to hurt for a little bit, but it'll get better in the end. No, it's not going to get better. I've laid out the numbers for the next 25 years, and we will never get better from tariffs. I mean, like, if the tariffs will never stimulate the kind of growth that it is saying, and it just gets exponentially worse the longer we keep them. Blanket tariffs affect everyone, even the made in America products, right? Because most of the made in America products are in one way or another affected by things that aren't made in America. Even if 100% of what is made in America, it's still affected by tariffs. You buy from another country or from another company, right? And that company is all made in America. But because all the other tariffs, like they sell the widgets and their widgets are all made in America, and so you buy your widgets from there. But everybody else's widgets get more expensive. So they raise the price on their widgets, and so you have to pay more prices for widgets. Do you think people are going to charge less money just because it's made in America? That's kind of the whole point of tariffs, is that people that make stuff in America can sell their stuff for more money. Anyway. Yeah, they used them way back in the day. And it also, just so you know, what is the just go ahead and, well, someday when you're just bored and don't want to do anything else, look up the Smoot-Hawley Traffic Act of 1930. That is why we don't do these kinds of tariffs anymore. It is not 1829, just so you know. Exactly. It's a two-way door. Everyone is paying more for everything, domestic and non-domestic. And then when you've got mass deportations on top of that, like when we're talking about food or housing, or like things that are driven by labor from immigrants, and you start doing these mass deportations, the price of those things go up. So like you want to buy some avocados, you go to buy the avocados at the avocado store, and there's two kinds of avocados, right? There's your domestic avocados, which the price has gone up because the price of labor has gone up because there aren't any laborers. And so, or the farmers are going out of business, so there's just not any domestic avocados there. And then the foreign avocados all have tariffs on them. So you end up like going, how did the cost of avocados get so high? Well, that's high. That's how. And anybody that's been to the grocery store knows that the price of groceries are going up. That is not like a that's not a struggle the brain has to deal with. Like Donald Trump can say they're going down all he wants because the price of eggs are down. So the only thing anybody buys is eggs. The more I've studied tariffs, the more well, let me put it this way. My brother has a PhD from Wharton, so he knows more than me, and sometimes it's just good if you say, all right, you know more than me. and he says there is no such thing as a good tariff. That's his opinion, and he spent considerable time explaining his opinion, and this is like the hill he will die on. Like, and he, according to him, a lot of this is probably like the consensus among macroeconomists is that tariffs are just universally bad. And I talked to another guy that has a PhD from Wharton that was he's an econ professor. He was talking about like the tariff that one of the big success stories of tariffs that they like to talk about was these tariffs on the washing machines from Trump's first term. And this new factory opened up that was going to sell more washers and dryers. And it opened up and it sold more washers and dryers. But the amount of money spent on tariffs versus the amount of money generated by this new factory, it was like for every job created, it cost like $400,000 or something, and in lost GDP. So when you look at the totality of things, tariffs just don't work. Maybe before we had, like in the 1800s, maybe things were different, or maybe it's just that was all we had. We didn't have income taxes. We didn't have other ways to generate money. And by the way, a lot of people think the Civil War had a lot to do with tariffs. John C. Halcune, what is it? The South Carolina Exposition? Take a read someday. The last year he made me sorry that I brought kids into this world. Now I have grandkids and great grandkids. I have great concern. Yeah, I've talked about this. I know a lot of people that are some millennials and some Gen Z that they just don't want to have kids. I mean, some of us look at, actual reality and say climate change is terrifying and really, really bad crap is going to happen. And I don't want to put my children through that, so I'm just not going to have them. I had a container from China and the tariffs almost made me cry. Yeah. And it's just, if you're in business, it's going to be, it hits a lot worse. And it's the small businesses that it hits even worse. This going back to the K-shaped economy I was talking about earlier. In some ways, some of the big businesses, they're actually able to profit off of all this chaos. Because what they do is they stock up on everything. And then when the prices are low, right, before the tariffs kick in, they bought a bunch of they bought all their widgets from China beforehand because they could afford to spend like an extra $1 million on widgets. And so then everybody else, all their competitors that are the small businesses, once the tariffs kick in, they have to pay the higher prices for the widgets, like Brett here. And then when they have to raise their prices just to stay in business, the large corporations that spent less money on the widgets because they had all that extra money that they could spend on them. They bought their discount widgets. Now they can undersell their competition and drive their competition out of business. And then they absorb that business. So yeah, the Trump administration is just all about the poor, the wealthiest Americans getting more and more of the pie, and the middle class and poor Americans getting small, like fighting more and more over that last little crumb. There's a fine line where after a certain point, yes, you are going capital, but you are losing sales due to lack of customers. Right. And then that has a ripple effect, because then once that happens, you start losing employees and unemployment starts to go up, which means that, and since they're unemployed, they have less money to spend, which means other businesses start going under because they're not having as much money spent there. And this is where the austerity stuff kicks in, because usually we have what we call stabilizers. Stabilizers are things like unemployment, so that if you lose your job, you still get a paycheck so that you don't lose your house or whatever. Well, now you've got a Republican Party and that's going after the things, the stabilizers, not so much unemployment, but things like Social Security, things like government assistance, things like Medicaid. It's like, oh, we've got a work enforcement for Medicaid. Okay, but you don't have jobs. Everybody says to buy American, but you can't for so many objects. Yes. It's like, oh, buy American. And it's like, where are you supposed to get coffee? Well, they grow coffee in California and Hawaii. They don't grow anywhere near enough coffee in California and Hawaii. There's just not enough American to buy. And it's also like $40 a pound for California coffee. 70% of the American market is made outside the country. I'd say, yeah. I mean, and that's another, this is a really, sorry, I don't mean to elaborate on every single comment, but this is the nice thing about not having the trolls, Brett, is actually being able to have a real conversation. So 70% of the American market is made outside the country. Hell, I'd say even 80%. Yeah, and that's part of having the largest economy in the world, is that you can buy more money. It's like, oh, we have a trade deficit with, Penguin Island. And it's like, well, the Penguins just don't have as much money to spend as we do. So of course we're going to buy more stuff from Penguin Island than Penguin Island is going to buy from us. What, based on what? I mean, this is the kind of, what is the word for that? Nationalistic propaganda stuff. No, it's not true. Mercedes makes a damn good car. Some people say that Germans make better cars than Americans do. I see more Toyotas and Hondas than I see Fords and Chevys. It would take an entire generation to get all that back in America. Yeah, like, it's just staggering how little some people think about these things. They stopped teaching them in the 2010s. Oh man. Wow. So they don't even teach like basic civics anymore? Like just the basic constitution, like the 3 branches of government stuff, they don't even teach that? And the chips aren't made here either. Right. GM makes. There was an acronym that somebody used to say GM, not the government motors, but there was another one. They teach it and racism, but in the entirely incorrect way. They spare certain details and elaborate on others. They don't teach the fact that slaves came from other tribes. I think that they teach some of that. Not all of the tribes, just to clarify, not all of the tribes. Only about 10% of the slaves were sold into slavery by other tribes. About 90% of them were just captured by slavers. Which, by the way, did you know John Newton, the guy that wrote Amazing Grace, that song? He was a slaver before he became a Christian. He has a pretty powerful story. He was a slaver, and one day he was in a storm, and he cried out to God, like to save him, and the ship got wrecked, and then he was washed up on shore, and this African tribe restored him back to health, and so it was through that he said God answered my prayer, and he became a Christian. So when he says, like, he was really, really a horrible, horrible person, capturing black people and selling them into slavery, and having them die in his gallows on the way and stuff, like, honestly, just a really, really horrible human being. So when he says Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me, like, he really meant he was a wretch. He wasn't just saying that metaphorically or something. He was an honestly terrible, terrible person. Schools don't teach what they are supposed to teach. All they want to worry about is, hey, I'm coming. Dude, no, they don't teach that. Where do you get this from? They don't do that. Please, just understand, they don't do that. They don't sit there and have classes that say, oh, you're gay, you can be gay. You have a lot of opinions that aren't based on any knowledge. I've seen, oh my goodness, what some of these Chinese EVs do. They've got them now, and they're cheap. That's why Elon doesn't want. That's why Elon wants the tariffs on them. Chinese EVs are like blow the hell out of a Tesla, and they're like I think you can get them for like $15,000, the equivalent of like $15,000. And these are like the middle, the equivalent to the middle class, or the middling Teslas, and they have a range of like 400 or 500 miles, or 300 or 400 miles. But here's the coolest thing. This is the coolest thing, that they have these like electric stations, but they don't charge the batteries there. You can either buy a battery and then not pay this fee, or you can rent the battery. But what you do is you just go to the charging station, and you pull up in it, and the car kind of docks itself. And then when it docks itself, it just swaps the battery out for a new battery. And then, somebody else charge up that battery. It'll give it to somebody else. So you don't have like one battery in one car. So it's not, like somebody was just saying that the battery costs more than the car. It's actually not true there. It's actually really cheap. And it's like, you get the equivalent of like $7 for a battery swap or something ridiculously cheap. And you can even, they're getting the point that now they're getting the point where you could, like, let's say you wanted to run into the store and, go to the bathroom, and then you come out of the bathroom. So you run it, you want to run into the store, grab a bathroom and a bag of Doritos and a soda pop, right? And so you go in there, you get your stuff, you do your stuff, and you come out, and while you're gone, the car takes it over itself over to the charging station, docks itself in, then another robot transfers out the battery, and then the car drives back to pick you up when you come out of the door. And they've been doing this already. They've already done like, oh, what is it? Want to say 40 million battery swaps? Isn't that cool? Like, if you could, like, basically do that. I have an electric vehicle, by the way. I have a Nissan Leaf. I paid like 30,000 for it. I got it brand new, and it's just awesome. It's I had the nicest car I had before that was a Ford Taurus show, which I don't know if you know anything about cars, but those were pretty sporty. That thing had some get up and go. The Leaf has more pep than my show did. I think it's not even like the Leaf is not a particularly sporty electric vehicle, but that thing will get up to, like, to me, the thing I really like is when I'm getting on the interstate, I want to get up to speed like right now, and I'm up to speed like within 3 seconds in my Leaf. It's 0 to 60 faster than most of your muscle cars, and it's not even a particularly good electric car. People that say that electric cars aren't that great are, they don't know. They've never driven one. They're awesome. And that whole, like, if I could, like, the docking thing to me should be a game changer. We should be building up these stations across America. Yes, way better than Tesla. Some can even leap. Yes, they've got flying cars there. They do. They have actual flying cars. My point was AI was originally designed. Oh, that U9 is crazy. My point was AI was originally designed to clean up, human error in code. Oh, I did not know, and assist us. Instead, it is being used to cut human labor entirely. It was only a matter of time. I mean, I use AI because I have to. AI stole my job, so I'm going to make AI do my job. I find it helpful. I will say there's some good things about it. There's some bad things about it. And in some ways, I know there's all this talk about, and legitimate talk about AI and how much electricity it consumes. And especially, and I think there you have to like look at things in balance. But I was using it to do like the videos, not the, I still use it for slideshows because it doesn't drain much electricity for that. But for these lifelike videos, to do 1/8-second video, it takes more electricity than running your microwave on high for an hour. Just an 8-second video, that's how much electricity it uses. Teachers have taught for years, my guy, and why would they? Teachers have. Yeah, teachers is one of those. They're like some of the professions that are understaffed right now. Teachers, doctors, nurses. Nurses are a big one. I have not adjusted the default settings for links, so I don't know if I allow them to be posted or not. If you're on social media other than YouTube, if I don't, then try like I'm at Machine Pun Kelly on both Blue Sky and Twitter, and you can send me a link, and then then I can pick it up there, or you can send me like an email at machinepunkelly.com, or at machinepunkelly@google.com. We quickly learned it's cheaper to import than it is to develop domestically. Hence why the majority of the world imports tanks instead of developing them. Okay, guys, I have to take a 5-minute break. I will be right back. I'm enjoying the conversation, so I want to keep going, but I need to take a break. My cat is insisting on something. I am back. Hopefully, somebody's still here. Let me check. Hey, we still have people here. Awesome. All right. He had to eat, so I figured I'd take care of myself while I was up too. We quickly learned it's cheaper to import than it is to develop them domestically. Hence why the majority of the world imports tanks instead of developing them. I think there are some things that are just better developed somewhere else. Some things just simply can't grow here. Like coffee beans, for the most part, you need tropical climate and a mountainous terrain. And we get a little bit of that in California, get a little bit of that in Hawaii, but there's just not a lot of that around in America. Sometimes you just need cheaper labor, and some places labor is cheaper. There's a lot of reasons, and so it's like I think we need to get away from this idea that anything good for anybody else is bad for America. You know, sometimes you can have a symbiotic relationship with another country where you both benefit from each other. I just got 28 grams of blueberry gelato and another 28 grams of Durban poison. What is Durban poison? Is that because I brought up gelato, Brett? Is it my ice cream is to gelato thing? I'm all out of weed. I'm so lost without you. The big guys up top have stop realizing that corporations thrive better than competition. Move to a recreational state, fat bong. If I run out, I go around the corner. I live in Texas. And it's, if anybody on the planet has ever needed to get stoned just one time, it's Ted Cruz. If Ted Cruz got stoned, so many things could change. All right, so here's a question for you guys. If you could get a politician stoned, like a good and proper baked, who would it be? The weather has put me out of work for 2 weeks. What do you do for a living? Even cheap smoke land at 22% THC is $100. Oh, that wasn't. Oh, I see what you're talking about now. See, this is what happens when you live in Texas. I thought you were talking about ice cream. I thought it was like some Ben and Jerry's flavor. When I'm low on funds, I get my weed from my reservation. They have cheap stuff and they give away plenty. Man, can't even find half grams for $5 anymore here. Oh my goodness! You know what I needed to start doing? I need to start selling my food stuff, or like my. I got to start talking more about my food stuff on this channel. See if I can sell some of my food ideas. There's going to be a lot of sales in the near future because I'm pretty sure Trump and men derivatives are illegal now. Don't quote me on that. Well, as soon as somebody figures out how to tell Donald Trump he can make money off of it, he will legalize it. I have had zero formal education. I dropped out at 16 and have been working ever since. My viewpoint is me taking things at face value. You seem like, you know, an intelligent person from what you've said here. I don't think education is I don't think formal education is everything, but I think anybody can learn. Abraham Lincoln was self-taught. The whole legalization of marijuana is diabolical because the moment it became federally legal, politicoids lose money from big tobacco. Yeah, it's becoming less, and it's becoming more and more of eventually they're gonna end up having to fold. It's going the way of, you know, like gay marriage. It took a while to gain enough steam, but I think it's gaining steam. I'm sorry, dude. You can send me an email if you want. MachinePunKelly at Kelly Skelett, or MachinePunKelly at Gmail. Yeah, tariffs are bad. They're only there to incentivize people. Because I can open up the link in the window if you email. Oh, you know what I can do if you want? Here, I got an idea. Since we don't have the trolls on here. Try this. Hang on. Okay, if you want to, you don't have to show your face or anything, but if you want to pop on, and then you can send it to me in my private chat here. But I just sent you a link to an invite to the show. Or you can pop on if you want. I see we're getting. This topic always makes me laugh. The big runners undercut the competition, and the moment they try to undercut the big runners just flat out buy them into their company. Yes, that's the goal. The goal is to end up absorbing the lower company. There's a word for it, or can't remember what the index is, but there's actually an index that tracks how much of different industries are owned by a few corporations. And I can't remember what it is, but the United States is getting a lot worse in that regard. Like fewer and fewer companies are owning more and more of America. We are really headed for idiocracy. Planned obsolescence is BS. I was raised in a garage working on cars from the 20s and 30s. You're telling me my first truck with 400,000 miles was bred or produced in a 2014 Honda? BS, not with tech. Yeah, well, they're not building those trucks anymore either. People aren't buying their cars now to put 400,000 miles on them. The whole way that, if you have a 2-year-old car, it means you're driving a beater. Everybody feels like they have to drive a brand new car every 2 years. Yeah. Places where they have, Colombia and, I don't know, do they grow it in Spain? So the countries, I'll look this up. Brazil is the world's largest coffee producer. Approximately 37 to 38% of the global amount. Oh, Vietnam is second. That's interesting. And Colombia is third. So between those three countries, that's about 90% of the coffee in the world. But yeah, Indonesia is fourth, and then Ethiopia. That's where you get the Arabica. Well, Arabica comes from Ethiopia and Colombia. Robusta coffee is from Vietnam. I did not know that. That is interesting. I never even knew that Vietnam grew coffee. I had a GE washer and dryer. Both died on the last warranty day. That's too much. That's planning, dude. That's planning. 100% modern cars fail after 250,000 miles. Engines quit after 240. Frames clap out at 100,000. I've seen brand new Fords rust from the frame with less than 100,000 miles. My Android phone, instead of monthly updates, gets quarterly updates. Nerds in life. Yeah, everything you got to replace now. My car, I have, believe it or not, I have a 2011 Dodge Caravan with about 40,000 miles on it. And I have my 2-year-old Leaf has about 3,000 miles on it. As you can see, I don't drive very much. I work from home. I live in a small town. The grocery store is a mile away. And I tend to be something of a homebody. Like when the pandemic happened, I was like, I've been training my whole life for this. Yang Wang U9 is incredible. You should look at it. There's videos of it jumping off the ground stationary like a transformer. Yeah, there was even read an article by a guy that actually went to China to play with some of this tech, and he was just amazed by some of the things. The other thing they're way ahead of us on is drones. And they've got like the flying cars. You can take like flying taxis. Like this is serious George Jetson type stuff. And the other thing they can do is they have drones that do food delivery. And you can Like, just say you're in the park and you send them your GPS coordinates. You don't even have to send them an address. You can just send them your GPS coordinates and they'll fly your food and like literally drop it off. I mean, some of this stuff, and it's like you get it in like 7 minutes or whatever. It gets there a lot faster than driving it. You were born in '04. Goodness gracious. You are a pup. No offense. Man, '04. So you're 21. They explain how the government works and politics go with it. Senate, legislature, but they don't explain how it works. They explain the basics. Man, for me, it's a little. I mean, I'm in a little different situation. I went to high school in Liberia at a school that was. My dad was a diplomat, and so like the school that I went to was mostly diplomats from, or what the children of diplomats from my country and other countries. So like when we learned civics, we were like at a different level. When I took civics in high school, or when I took civics in college, about 2 weeks in, the professor was like, "You already know all this stuff. Why are you even here?" But we didn't have AP placement anyway. He said, there was a kid that was struggling, and he said, "You know what? Do me this favor." He's like, "If you can get this guy to get a C, if you can tutor him and get him a C, I'll give you an A. You don't even have to take any tests or do any homework." And so, and I thought that was like a pretty cool, or like that professor was pretty awesome for thinking of that kid. And so we started studying together, and he got a B, and he had never like learned how to study or anything. So I was like teaching him some study techniques and stuff. And he was like sitting there in tears that he got a B in this class, and he was telling me he had never gotten a B before in anything, in like in high school or anything. And so like just how learning how to study was huge for him. And then so I got an A, he got a B in the class. And about 4 years later, I was working at the Mall of America. I was managing a store there, and I ran into him, and he had just gotten his college degree and graduated. And he was like, "I never could have done it if it hadn't been for you." And I'm thinking, he never would have done it if it hadn't been for that professor that gave me that deal. Anyway, that's what I think of as a good teacher. Because he kind of taught me something too, that kindness goes a long way. My car can jump higher than yours. That who's gonna win that argument, you know? And I'd like to say Chinese concepts are amazing, but they lack the logistics to produce quality. I don't even know if that's true. I think that's like a thing we like to say, but I don't know if it's true. I mean, I literally don't know if it's true. There's a presumption that we do everything better, but it's not always, doesn't always pan out. Oh, you rely on a bike or something, or I didn't even know if we had any Chinese cars. Oh, an e-bike, yeah. I've got a 3 kilowatt e-bike I brought from China. Beat it to hell, still kicking 6,300 miles in. Does it ever get tired? There's a pun for you. Nice. I customized with Flipski controllers. So, okay, all right. Hey, I stole your job. Now it's that. No, I was a AI. I was a technical writer, and I literally trained the AI to replace me. Yeah, I'm only when it comes to the jokes. Only when it comes to X-File jokes. Mhm. Oh, hey, there we go. All right, so let's see if I can. Oh, that's that. Okay. All right. Thanks, photo. I think that's. Oh, we still got some people here. Just no more conversation. Well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go through the rest of this um, just for the clips. Even if it never doesn't get any comments. All right. So let's get back to this. Special focus: ICE as an unchecked state power. So this is, going back to the whole Gestapo thing. Is it fair to uh, think of ICE as being like Gestapo? Let's again look at the facts. So there was this secret May 2025 memo, ICE Authority and the Fourth Amendment. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons on May 12th said ICE can forcibly enter homes using only administrative warrants. And an administrative warrant is a self-administered warrant. Like, you can give yourself the warrant. So you can say, hey, can I have that warrant? And then you say, yes, you can have that warrant. And then I say, all right, I'm going to use this warrant. It kind of defeats the whole purpose of getting a warrant. The point of a warrant is that it's got to come from somebody else, a judge, somebody neutral, somebody that's an expert in the law. Why do you need that? You have to answer to somebody. The administrative warrant is just defeats the purpose of the warrant. And if you're going to defeat the purpose of the warrant, then you're defeating the purpose of the Fourth Amendment. Administrative warrants are internal DHS paperwork. They're just a form you fill out. They never get reviewed by a judge. Supreme Court for 50 plus years. Fourth Amendment requires neutral and detached magistrate, which these do not get. And these are talking about going into homes. They're not just going into the homes of illegal immigrants. They're going into homes of American addresses. So it doesn't, they don't have a warrant, there's no requirement for them to prove to anybody that it's an illegal immigrant that lives there. You can't backload these conversations and say, well, they're going after illegal immigrants, but they're going into houses, period. And that's how you end up taking legal American citizens out of their homes in their underwear in the middle of a Minnesota winter. That's why you need warrants. Even after people get shot and Donald Trump says people make mistakes. Yes, people make mistakes. That's why you need warrants. That's the purpose of warrants. People make mistakes, so you need somebody else to check on your mistakes. I've been writing professionally for about 25 years, and one thing I have learned is you need somebody to check your work. I never publish anything, at least I try not to, without having somebody proofread it first. Because somebody's always going to find a mistake, especially my wife. My wife is great at finding my typos, especially after I published it. Labeled all ICE personnel, but only shown to select the cover up. It was labeled all ICE personnel, but only shown to select officials. The memo that said you can do administrative warrants. So they didn't tell everybody, oh, by the way, you get these administrative warrants now. They just decided they were going to start kicking people's doors down, and there's nothing you could do about it. Viewed only with supervisor and required to return oral instructions instead of written materials. They don't even need a written administrative warrant. Think about that. Think about that. Like, you can just go, hey, boss, can I kick this door down? And boss says, yeah, you can kick that door down. And so then you kick the door down. And then you're dragging an American citizen out into the middle of the street in the freezing Minnesota winter in his underwear because he's brown. And agents that felt like this was too far, this was too much, were threatened with being fired. So this is what they're calling Kavanaugh stops now. I hadn't heard that until I was doing this. But I like the reason is there was a Supreme Court hearing in September 2025, Noem versus Vasquez Perdomo, that, you know, they said that there was racial profiling because he was brown and had an accent. And Justice Kavanaugh declared apparent ethnicity can be a relevant factor in immigration stops if it's combined with things like an accent, locations, Home Depot, and certain jobs like Home Depot, you know. So you see a bunch of brown people that are speaking Spanish at a Home Depot, it's okay to just assume they're all illegal immigrants. That's what Brett Kavanaugh is saying, which is insanely racist and absolutely 100% fascist. Because it's just, this is what's happening in Minnesota now, because it's not like people are just going to stay constrained. You've already opened up the barn. You don't think the horses are going to run out? You have people just like filling up their gas and they, while being black, while they're looking for Somali people, and they just see somebody that looks Somalian, says, hey, let me see your papers. And then they're getting carted off to jail, even though they're here legally, even if they're citizens. Most of the Somalis here are citizens, by the way, either naturalized or born. I think it was 92% of the Somalis in Minnesota are citizens. That doesn't mean the other 8% are here illegally. Most of them are here legally. There's not a big illegal Somalian population, Somali population in Minnesota. And most of the Somalis that were involved in fraud are already in jail. This is just 100% an exercise in racism. But now you got black people all over Minnesota getting detained because they have accents and they're black. Before this, courts ruled agents couldn't stop someone for looking like an immigrant. But I guess if you look like an immigrant and you sound like an immigrant, then that's okay to assume somebody's an immigrant. Which is funny, because if somebody looks like a fascist and sounds like a fascist and walks like a fascist and says fascist things and makes fascist rulings, then it's like, oh, you can't call them a fascist. In December, Kavanaugh tried to walk it back, claiming stops can't be based on race, directly contradicting himself. But this was not in a official written opinion. You can say, you know, if you write it down in an opinion, and then you say, well, I didn't mean it that way. Yeah, well, it's too late. The horse is already out of the barn, all of them. The results: terror and lawlessness, U.S. citizens violently detained. I mean, you got to understand right now, you have a group of people under the auspices of being federal agent that can go into any home in the state of Minnesota, kick the door open, and drag them out of the house in their underwear based on nothing but their boss saying it was okay. U.S. citizens have been violently detained. Scott Tao, the Minnesota guy that was the Laotian guy, that was an American. He was removed from his home in his underwear. And that one to me is like, people say, well, he was an American citizen and they did that. He was a human being and they did that. That's the part that really pisses me off about that one. Why do you have to take a human being and drag him out in his underwear in the middle of the Minnesota winter? Why can't you just let him put on a pair of pants and a shirt and just not freeze? Why is it so horrible that you have to not only strip away his constitutional rights, you also have to strip away his human dignity? Leonardo Garcia Fernandez in Alabama, violently arrested after showing the real ID. He had a real ID. This dude had a real ID. This is why I say the Gestapo at least believed your papers when you showed them your papers. The real ID, I don't know if you know, but in Texas we have real IDs. Real IDs are like, these are supposed to be the IDs that are impossible to fake. These are the ones that you can use use voting to prove you're really a citizen. You can't get these unless you're a citizen. These are the ones you use when you fly on airplanes. Mushaber or Mubashir in Minneapolis detained for hours despite offering digital real ID. There's been over 170 U.S. citizens detained and arrested by ICE in 2025. Some kicked, dragged, detained for days, according to ProPublica, which did an extensive report on this. But let us not be confused into thinking that only 170 have been detained. It is a lot more than 170. I mean, trust me on that. It is a lot more than 170. Okay. What legal experts say, former federal judge E. Jones III turns the Fourth Amendment on its head. Government essentially says, we want you arrested because we said so. That's exactly what it's the opposite of the Fourth Amendment. Law professor Stephen Vladeck. It's just not true that ICE can enter homes without judicial warrants. Clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. Law professor Lindsay Nash. Policy flies in the face of the Fourth Amendment protections. Enormous potential for overreach for mistakes, like dragging American citizens out in the middle of winter in their underwear. Immigration lawyer Rosanna Barati, fundamental Fourth Amendment chapter, and another chapter of Trump administration ignoring long established legal precedent. So let's look at the historical parallel. The past Fourth Amendment's purpose. This is why it's in the Constitution. This is why the framers said, hey, you know what? We need this Fourth Amendment thing there. All right. So this is why we even have one. The Fourth Amendment's purpose. The Fourth Amendment was designed to present exactly this. Judge Jones said the American Revolution was partly because the king or those empowered by the king can invade people's homes at will. Right? So this is exactly the same spirit as that. The present Trump administration's actions, the Trump administration has created secret policy allowing exactly that, hidden the policy from public scrutiny because they know if this was public, then there might be some backlash. They've threatened agents who have questioned it. They've used Supreme Court rulings to legalize racial profiling. They've deployed unchecked force against political opposition. And they've killed U.S. citizens with impunity with no chance that those people that killed those citizens will ever see a courtroom. They're doing more to protect the people that are killing American citizens than they are to protect actual American citizens. But they want us to believe that they are protecting us? No. And that's me. I'm a white guy. I'm a middle-aged white man. And I don't even feel safe. I can't imagine if I was a young Latino man. The systemic pattern. All right, so this is putting the whole slideshow together. Is it fair to call Donald Trump a fascist? Let's just review that. All 12 tenets of fascism are present. He's ultranational rhetoric is tied to racial identity. He's got this racial hierarchy ideology, traditional gender roles enforced by state. Just look at the rhetoric against transgender people, anti-democratic and anti-liberal stance, authoritarian leadership above the law, explicit rejection of democratic norms, systemic propaganda and informal information control, personality cult replacing institutional legitimacy, military worship and aggressive expansion, state violence against opposition, economic regimentation, serving leader elites, and corporatist economic policies benefiting elites. All of that is true. These are the 12 tenets of fascism, and he rings the hell out of every one of these bells. The critical question then is not just are these individual elements exist demonstrably, they do. The question is whether the systemic combination of these elements, the pattern itself, constitutes fascism. It's not just can you cherry pick certain things. It's does the whole of it spell out fascism, and it does. It all does. It is impossible to look at anything that Donald Trump says or does, or anything from this administration that is not fascist to the root. Donald Trump is a fascist. MAGA is fascism. And this entire slideshow is just evidence that it is. This is not the rantings of some Democratic. This is the frustration of an American citizen watching my civil rights be trampled by an actual fascist and celebrated by so-called patriots. So what are historians saying? They're not comparing it to late-stage Nazism. We're comparing it to the early 1930s Germany, before most familiar Nazi elements emerged, when the Nazis were taking over the Nazi party. Right now, what we're in is we're in the MAGAs taking over the Republican Party. This is not the end game. This is, they got our queen. And what are we going to do about it? Professor Christopher Browning, most fair comparison is around 1930. This is not a reassurance. Representative James Clyburn, who I know Republicans will, or the MAGAs will say he doesn't count because he's, they won't say it's because he's black. They'll say it's because he's a Democrat, but we know what you mean. If we don't stop this and turn this around very soon, we will end up exactly like Germany did in the 1930s. And let me tell you something. James Clyburn knows a little something about having to deal with racism and fascism. The pattern isn't, are we exactly like 1933 Germany or 1945 Germany? It's, are we following the same playbook that led there? And according to multiple historians and genocide scholars, the answer is increasingly yes. And so I was talking to my wife the other day, and she was talking about somebody was saying that, is it fair to say he's Hitler? You're saying he's exactly like Hitler. And she was telling me, he was asking about this. And no, it's not fair to say he's exactly like Hitler. But what percent of Hitler are you comfortable with? How much like Hitler are you okay with him being? How much like Hitler are you okay with him being? At what point are you, saying, well, that's too much like Hitler? Is it 1%, 10%, 30%, 50%? We've got a guy that is president of the United States that's building concentration camps. Ain't detention centers or whatever, but they're concentration camps. That's quoting Hitler's rhetoric. He has a virtual Gestapo. He's got his own little private police force. Some of whom may very well have been his soldiers on January 6th. And now they're his private police force now. They are executing American citizens on the street for executing their First Amendment rights. At what point do you start acknowledging there's some similarities there? And at what point do you say that is too many? That's just too many. This is not coincidental overlap. This is not just, oh, he did this one thing and, that was kind of like Hitler. He has repeatedly quoted Hitler about brown people, about minorities, about immigrants. Like, that's some pretty hateful rhetoric. The whole thing from stem to stern is fascist. I've gone through and I have shown you over 150 things that are consistent with Donald Trump being a fascist. So, like, people want to ask me all the time, oh, well, what makes him a fascist? Well, this is what makes him a fascist. So anyway, I think that's about it for today. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. I don't know what I'll talk about tomorrow, but we'll figure it out. I'll talk to you later.